room is directly behind us, and the men's room is just to the left in the pass-through. Exits are behind you. If it gets too hot, we'll try to open up another one of the big doors. We kept them closed because it was blowing papers away on us. First thing I'd like to do for people who are here may possibly for the first time is to review our policy and procedure for public comment. It is a policy of the Town of Guilford to encourage citizens to contact the town supervisor, the highway superintendent, and the town clerk, dog control officer, and enforcement officer, the assessor, town justice, water superintendents, or members of the town board to address specific issues which involve the town. To comply with open meetings law, town law number 63, the Guilford Town Board hereby establishes a public comment policy to allow members of the public the opportunity to address the town board. In addition to public hearings, this is a time set aside for the purpose of hearing comments and suggestions from citizens. All comments made during the public comment period shall be subject to the following procedures. The town board may vote to suspend public comment if the comments do not follow the following rules. A 30-minute public comment period will be held during the regularly scheduled town board meeting each month. It is requested that individuals or representatives for groups who wish to make a statement during the public comment period pick up a numbered card by the door. We're not using those tonight. We'll simply go one at a time. Speakers will have up to 5 minutes to make their statements, and we're going to limit individuals to one 5-minute session. In the event that groups of persons supporting or opposing the same position wish to speak, a spokesperson will be designated to express the group's concerns. Speakers will be courteous in their language and presentation. If possible, it is requested that the speakers stand when presenting and be seated when finished. Comments must be related to legitimate town business. It is requested but not required that speakers begin by stating their name, address, and organization, if any. Speakers will direct their statements at the town board as a whole and not to individual board members or the audience. Discussion or debate between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Any action items already on the agenda will be discussed as scheduled. The town board will not likely take any action on a subject for which they have not had the opportunity to fully investigate or gather complete information. The town board may provide additional public comment time at the end of the meeting. A majority of the town board is required to suspend public comment. I have to ask that we don't have any additional chatter or talk during the meeting. This is a much larger room than we're usually in. We are trying to tape record this, which we usually do for our meetings. We did a test earlier, and we can pick up a single individual, but if we have movement or other things, it's not going to work. If you need to have discussion, I'm going to ask, please step outside the building and around the corner or something, and do not be too loud. I guess we're about ready to begin. Anything else from the board that I've missed? Okay, the first item of business tonight is a public hearing on the update to the renewable energy section of our comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan was adopted December 2014. Notice is hereby given that the Guilford Town Board will hold a public hearing on June 12th at 7 p.m. at the Guilford Town Hall located at 223 Marble Road for the purpose of hearing public comments on the update to the 2014 Town of Guilford Comprehensive Plan. Copies of the proposed update are available in the town clerk's office during regular business hours as well as on the town website. At this time, I'd like to declare the public hearing open. It is the second public hearing that we're having. Anyone wishing to speak, you have the floor.
I'd like to speak.
Sure.
My name is Tim McNerney, and I wanted to speak specifically to one situation that regards the town's relationship with whomever puts up the wind turbine system. And the reason I'm speaking about this is because I have personal knowledge of this. I have a renewable energy system at my house, and I just suffered a balance of plant issue. Balance of plant, if you don't know what that is everything that has to do with the generation of electricity from the wind turbine system, except for the wind turbines. The plant is everything that makes it all possible to happen. Not Mother Nature and the wind, but everything else. The roads, the transformers, everything that goes into making this work in an area is part of the plant. So I had a balance of plant issue because half of my solar system is on the roof of my house. And guess what began to leak? Not the solar system, the roof. And so I had to have the solar system removed from the roof. It's still on the ground, and guess what I'm not doing? I'm not generating any electricity. Whose fault was it that the roof leaked? Well, it really wasn't mine, but I'm the homeowner, so I'm responsible for that. The hit is personal. I'm only generating half of the solar that I normally would generate because the balance of my plant wasn't working properly. The roof has been fixed. Now the solar system will be put back on. The reason I bring it up is this. The changes to the comprehensive plan seem to go a lot further with regard to what's going on than last time I looked at it. However, has the town considered their responsibility for the balance of plant on this wind turbine project? Let me give you an example. Large snowstorm that does not inhibit the wind turbines operating properly, the kind that's heavy, comes down fast, and suddenly Calpine says, we need to get to the turbines to check things, et cetera, and town says, well, I'm really sorry, we just can't open up the road yet because it's not possible to do that. Or heavy rains, or other things. Or there are so many parts of the balance of plant that are the town's responsibility. How have you discussed and considered the cost to the town for maintaining that balance of plant and your relationship to the vendor of the system once the system's up and operational? There's one other aspect of balance of plant that's really important, and that's valuation. In the first 5 years of this system couldn't make a dime, and it wouldn't matter, because the builders of the system are going to depreciate it completely in 5 years. They have the legal right to do that. They should do that under the tax law. That's called costing it out. That's great. But after 5 years, they can't do that anymore. And at that point, they'll be looking at income generation from the turbines. If the turbines are not generating to meet their income projections, and if part of it's balance of plant issues, I can see a real frictional situation here where the town is adding extra this or doing extra that or whatever at additional cost to the town to make it possible for these wind turbines to work, even though they aren't our responsibility. They actually are our responsibility. So I just bring this up as a really important aspect of this because the valuation of these systems, a lot of it, particularly turbine systems, is based on balance of plant. It's one of the major causes of outages of wind turbine systems. Thank you very much.
I just moved it.
These comments are pertinent to the
Yes.
update to the comprehensive plan.
Yes. I just moved to 120 Marble Road. I'm a former teacher. I have a master in energy management and environmental. My questions, we will follow this. There's a case in Michigan that they built turbine farm, and they ended, instead of having a green energy, beautiful plant, a nightmare. They ended up paying back billions of dollars because they had to, the ones who installed the wind farm, they were specialized workers, specialized contractors, specialized engineers, specialized people who maintain that. Nothing had to bring workforce from here. Then if they damage, they come back with specialized people, specialized things. But I don't hear anything about that they're going to create schools, education over here. You said the college that you have over here, they're going to create a 2-year a vocational or 2-year technical school to prepare students to take over when the problem starts. This is easy to do. People who go over there learn how to deal with the rotors, specialize to put the rotors, specialize to maintain those rotors, etc. Another problem that they have is the chains of the turbulence. For your information, 100 watts produce 0.4 centigrades to 1.5 Fahrenheit change in microclimate. 100 watts. That changes 10 times the force when the turbulence starts working to 1,000. So we're talking about 4 Fahrenheit, 4 centigrades to 15 Fahrenheit for 1. Now we're talking 10, 20, 30. Well, that changed a lot of microclimates over there. Now we're talking the leeward of the mountain over there. That would change a lot. Opening the highway would change more the climate. So this is not so simple. This is, it's a beautiful, I studied that. That was my master. It sounds beautiful, it sounds excellent. California, Pennsylvania, Michigan, there's a lot of states, even England have a lot of problems with this. And there's the best ones in the world. If you want to study something, go to the weather. NOAA have a beautiful graph about this. Oh, sorry.
You're not looking at it.
Sorry. The weather, NOAA have a farm turbines problems. Study, unbelievable. The carcasses of the bats. And people say, well, who cares about bats? The bats are the night pollinators for the farms and the insect eaters. We're going to have so much insects that you have to increase the insecticide to keep your farms clean. You understand? So this is not a simple thing. How big? I think, and by the way, this company do this in such way they go first to the flat places to buy land or rental land for this because they know the federal government doesn't like this way.
Okay. Once again, comments are directed about changes in the comprehensive plan. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Do I get to? Oh, awesome. My name's Deb Munyon. I live on Main Street in Guilford. And you're talking about this that says draft right on top?
No. We're talking about the comprehensive plan. That's what our public hearing is on right now.
Okay. That's okay. My question still applies. I was doing a little research on decibels, and seems that 25 decibels is normal for country life, which is what we are in town of Guilford, rural activity at night, and that the state actually allows a +6, so up to 31, during a project. Anything more than +20, the state deems as intolerable. Now, from what I understand, these wind turbines would have a decibel range of 45, which 25 and 20 is 45, which puts them into the intolerable area by the state. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I wanted to know was if this comprehensive plan is supposed to decrease the cost of the energy to the town of Guilford landowners, us, residents. They've already said that we're not going to be getting energy from these wind turbines, so I'm not sure, and that's in your own draft, I'm not sure why this is even, if it's not going to benefit us as individuals in decreasing our energy, I'm not sure what the purpose is.
Anyone else wishing to speak with regard to the comprehensive plan?
My name's Ed Lawson, I live on Philippo Del Road. You've told a couple of the people that have spoken that they need to address you or your board.
The entire board,
If
yes.
they're speaking, why isn't the board looking at them if they have to look at you? That's my, I know, this is not open to question, but if you're asking us to address the board should be focusing on the person that's speaking, and they are not.
Anyone else wishing to address changes with the comprehensive plan?
My name is Christopher Denton. I'm an attorney. I'm here for the group in the white t-shirts, among others. Just 3 comments about the comprehensive plan. Maybe this is addressed to the attorney. Does seeker apply to the passage of the comprehensive plan, number 1? 2, has there been a cost-benefit analysis of changing this plan and authorizing renewables under their current understanding of what their benefits and detriments can be done before the plan was formed? In other words, from the analysis that everybody's been doing in the other areas that I've been working with, there seems to be almost no employment benefit. As it was mentioned earlier, these are all specialized jobs. They're minimum tax benefit because at the end we may end up with a decommissioning. The energy doesn't come here. We don't need the energy. New York State generates twice as much renewable energy or carbon neutral because of our 4 power plants up on Lake Ontario for nuclear. So we don't need it. What is the impetus for this town to take on the detriments of infrasound, noise, electromagnetic interference, et cetera, all of which are listed in their leases for which they require an easement? I'm just wondering, has there been a cost-benefit analysis between the detriments and the obligations and burdens that the town will take on if they do this against the benefits to the town and the town citizens? I guess really it's not the town administration, it's the benefit of the landowners, the people who live here. They really are the town people. And does seeker apply?
Yes.
Seeker does apply.
To the comprehensive plan adoption, yes.
Yes, and we've been through the secret process with this regard. This is our second public hearing. If you check our minutes from May 8th, there'll be information on the seeker in our May 8th. Anyone else wishing to speak with regard, once again, to the comprehensive plan? Yes.
I think myself, and I've seen what it does up around Polk, New York, you putting up these big towers, we think we got trouble with the weather now. We're going to really have trouble with the weather because this is going to affect our weather and even our well-being, and our properties are going to be worth nothing. People are going to move out of the town of Guilford. They'll say, we don't want it, we're going to move out. So now you've got to think about this and the people that are going to be left here. Not just because the town wants something. No, that don't work. As they stated, the road's got to be, this has got to be. If you get 6 foot of snow, 10 foot of snow, how are you going to maintain them windmills? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak with regard to the comprehensive plan? Yes.
George, I didn't
Not
see
George,
any,
town board.
Board, I didn't see any updates from the last comprehensive plan. I just want to check and make sure that we're talking about the same exact plan that we were at the last meeting. So my impression of the comprehensive plan is that we updated that so that we could update, so that we could pass the renewable energy laws. I still feel like there's a bunch of things in that draft comprehensive plan that are not being addressed by the comprehensive renewable energy laws. You've got things in there about protecting our property values, which didn't end up in the wind law at all, and other things about our view shed and things that aren't really actually being protected in the renewable energy draft. So I don't see the purpose in putting those in the comprehensive plan if we're not going to actually write the law to protect the things that we're talking about in the comprehensive plan we want to do.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak with regard to the comprehensive plan? Yes.
I'd like to thank the board for their time and effort in putting this together. I'm still reviewing it. My question is, for consistency, question on Article 2, Section 2, for the
Okay, are you in the comprehensive plan or the draft renewable energy law?
I'm in the draft renewable energy law.
That'll come.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak with regard to the update to the comprehensive plan? Okay.
I would like to, I'm Dan Harrington, I live on Keach Road. Christopher Denton brought up more than one question that was, and only one was addressed. I would like an answer to his question of if there was a cost-benefit analysis done. That was one of his questions. I'd like to hear that get answered, I think, by the attorney. Or whoever it was addressed to. Okay, or to the board.
We don't have an answer to that at this time.
No answer. So the answer, it wasn't done.
Afternoon. Anyone else wishing to address changes in the comprehensive plan? Yes.
Can we submit written comments after today?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. You can
How much
submit-
time do we have?
Well,
I don't know.
well, I guess if the board decides to adopt their amendment tonight, then tonight would be then I guess the answer would be no. But if they don't adopt it tonight, then you would. I mean, there's been, leading up to approval, then there's always time to submit written comments. You could always submit them after too, but obviously after adoption, it wouldn't, be all that impactful. But the public always has the option of submitting written commentary.
Anyone else? Once again, anyone else wishing to speak with regard to the changes, proposed changes in the renewable energy section of the comprehensive plan? Hearing no one at this point in time, I declare the public hearing closed, and we will proceed with the regular town board meeting. Okay, I'd like to call the regular monthly meeting of the Guilford Town Board to order. Councilmember Ives is not well. He's under the weather. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from May 8th and May 29th. Entertain a motion unless you so choose to dispense with the reading of the minutes.
I so move.
Motion has been made to dispense with reading of both minutes and second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's going to carry. All right. I'd like to deal with them individually, the minutes of May 8th.
I move we accept them as printed.
Okay, a motion has been made to accept the May 8th, 2019 minutes as presented. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's going to carry. For the minutes of May 29th,
I make a motion to approve them as written.
motion has been made to approve them as written. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion on the May 29th minutes. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's going to carry. Okay, at this point in time, we're going to open to public comment from the floor. We'll allow a half an hour for this. Get done approximately at 5 minutes to 8. Once again, I've reviewed the public comment policy for the town, and we will begin. Anyone wishing to speak?
Over here.
Anything? Just open the public comment. Go ahead.
I'm Clay Smith, and I'd like to know from Bob Fleming what we're going to do.
Sorry. Once again, it's directed to the town board. Bob is a highway superintendent. If you have a question about highways, send it to the town board.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, anyone wishing to make public comment at this point in time?
About what?
Anything? This is open public comment.
Shall I start?
Yes, go ahead.
We're wasting time. I'm sure a lot of people want to speak. I just want to start by saying that I think that we have received a lot of comments about the frustration of this process. I think for the citizens is that the open floor time and the public comment hearing time are really not meant to be like town hall style meetings where we're allowed to ask questions and get answers. And I think that the town has not had a town hall style meeting where we can expect to receive answers. And that's something that a lot of people feel like is really missing from this process. I want to say that at the beginning of this process, the board started with a discussion of a 5 times the height setback and a 2 mile from sensitive sites. Over the course of the last couple of meetings, that has been knocked down and those protections have been knocked back to a 2 times the height setback The setback is the most important tool we have to be able to protect ourselves from all of the effects, whether it's property value or shadow flicker or ice throw or noise or vibration or infrasound. The setback is the thing we use to protect ourselves the most. The 2 times the height setback for a tower of this size is less. It is less than what Calpine originally said that they were going to use for the distance from the tower to the house. I do not know why we would allow that. And I would like to know why the town has reduced the setbacks over the course of whatever conversations that have happened and landed here where we're offering them less than they were originally planning on using. Do you want to answer?
Do we have an answer? We'll take that into consideration. We do have discussion of that topic on the agenda.
That'd be great.
Once again, anyone else wishing to speak? Yes.
My name is Gary Lackus, live on the Creek, Smith Road, and I'm going to go back though to the May meeting with everyone. I had some comments.
Gary, can you speak up? We're not going to be able to hear you on our tape.
Got a mic?
No, we don't have a mic.
I want to say, like, I reviewed the postcard that was sent to me, with the information regarding the High Bridge Wind Project, and it states there, and I took this from the Guilford Town website, the homepage, right? Guilford is a charming rural town on the eastern border of Chenango County in south central New York State, United States. The natural beauty of this tranquil land is unspoiled by industry and commercialism. Okay? Guilford has undeveloped pasture land and dense forests. Guilford is a peaceful town with natural beauty and a colorful past. Okay? Now, that information, that's almost verbatim of my very first statement regarding my feelings, and I might add, from many others at the meeting on May 8th, with our responses to the proposed High Bridge Wind Project. All right? This was my first response for this project here. I've lived in my house for 46 years, and like most people here, I live here because of my love for the rural country atmosphere, the peace and tranquility of open spaces, surrounded by nature's beauty with wooded hilltops, mountainsides, fields, pastures, and farmlands. Guilford is among the most beautiful scenic areas in upstate New York, as viewed from many locations. One just needs to take a ride to the top of Mount Upton Hill on County Route 37, to the point where you are overlooking the valley at the Odell Farm, okay? We're overlooking at the point at the view of the Odell Farm and looking down over that valley is one of stupendous and absolutely astonishing beauty as seen anywhere. It is a picture right out of Currier and Ives that I have always been in. I've lived there for almost 47 years, and I've ridden that road many times. And it is a picture right out of Currier and Ives that I've always been in awe of and have reverence for its expansive beauty. And another wonderful benefit of living here in the country are the darkened nighttime skies with a magnanimous view of the stars that glisten like diamonds, the never-ending constellations, the Milky Way, that due to the reflective lighting in towns, cities, industrial, and commercial areas are never seen to admire. The continuation or the construction of these unsightly, out-of-place monstrosity industrial turbines will forever change and destroy this beauty of ours. And I also want to comment on some of the health effects that probably have been stated, but I just want to bring them up again to remind others, and they'll expand on it, I'm sure. The noise above 35 dBAs violates the resident's right to a quiet enjoyment. Steady noise causes sleep disturbance, headaches, depression, stress, cardiac problems. A lot of us are getting in that area, aren't we? Infrasound, low-frequency sounds your ears can't hear, but your body still feels also have many of these health effects. Property values will decrease 25 to 45% loss, and in some cases, maybe a total loss because you can't even find a buyer for the property within a mile or more of these turbines, the visibility. The shadow flicker, serious health issue, the nausea, dizziness, vertigo, headaches, and migraines. The wildlife. Wildlife kills the bats, bird kills, including the rebound of the bald eagle, the area abandoned of deer, bears, fox, raccoons, squirrels, rabbits, chipmunks, everything that's out in the woods. Right? And the area where some of them I've heard state before, well, I hunt in this area. Well, that's going to be gone.
Okay, Gary, I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
Yep. Okay, the construction, heavy equipment, trucks damage the roads, the noise of the machinery disrupted the daily life, the blasting for the foundations. This whole area where they're putting these turbines is all bedrock, okay? So you're going to be blasting there with dynamite, God knows what, and the vibrations threaten our aquifers for the wells and springs, our house foundation and structures. My house is 180 years old, you know, and there's a whole lot of other ones out there the same. Okay, I'm going to finish with that for now.
Thank you. And I'm going to say you're, I assume, from a group, because everybody got the same T-shirts on. Was there a
No, we're just
spokesperson?
residents wearing T-shirts, we're not. we all
Well, the
have
attorney
individual
here
badges.
said there is a group that he represents with.
There is, and that's on the solar issue, but these are all citizens. I don't
That's
think.
solar issue?
Excuse me, the wind issue. I don't think that you should hold this, the fact that they're here on the wind, against them on the public comment period for town business.
Well, we can see what they talk about. Okay, you have the floor.
Sure. Okay. I'm Rebecca. I live in Guilford, and I was reading through the update and the laws, and one thing that really stood out to me that was a bit shocking is that the word infrasound, to the best of my knowledge, combing through there, isn't even mentioned, and I find that extremely disappointing and kind of an egregious error given the amount of attention that we've spent conversing with the board on that particular topic and all the reassurances that we've gotten. I know you talk about noise, but audible noise is very different than infrasound. And I guess I'm also really perplexed how meeting after meeting that the board has received phone calls and emails and letters and lots of comments from the public at meetings like this and voicing of concern. And it seems like every time we talk about the wind laws and the updates, the protections get less and less. And it really feels like you're not listening to the residents, including myself. And as a concerned citizen, I'm really struggling with trying to understand why it feels like the board is catering to Calpine and ignoring the residents in this town. I'm also concerned that, I guess it seems, I know you addressed this previously, but that you have this idea or this belief, this misconception that you don't have power. You are our representatives and you do have the power to create protective wind laws to protect the people that you're representing. And the state isn't going to just throw out your law because you think you're worried about putting something in there that might be perceived as unreasonable. And this has been confirmed. I know the information was shared with you and the board in the last week or so that the siting board isn't going to just toss the law because there's something in there that you think might be unreasonable. If you said 0 decibels at someone's front door, that's unreasonable, but they would attack and inspect that element based on the Calpine's ability to prove that that's unreasonable, but they're not going to throw the whole law away. They would address that element of the law. And so I guess I want to be assured that you guys don't really believe that you don't have any power in this, because that's not true, and that scares me. that my town board would believe that. And I guess I just think it's time that you stop listening to Calpine and catering to Calpine and start doing your legal obligation to represent us as residents of Guilford who are going to pay for this for an indefinite period of time. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yes, I'm Lillian Finger. I live on George Wade Road. I'm questioning the board if there will be an environmental impact statement provided for the public, that they'll be checked out as to winds and their impact on each of the windmills that wish to go up, because I'm thinking back in 2004 where I had a microburst come through my property, and within a couple seconds, I mean, that just took out trees and everything. Nobody else was affected, but it happened to be like the same thing that happened around Sydney Center, where there was a microburst and it took out that whole side of the hill with all the plants and trees and everything. So with that being said, with our air currents and our different hills and topography and all the residents, the environmental impact statement should be provided with each plan that was brought up to begin with, and with each plan that is changed after that, there should be a new impact statement that people can see what exactly will be the situation at hand once they are installed, and in each area that they are installed. So I'd like that to be looked into if possible, and see if maybe the public can get more information on exactly how severe or not severe the conditions will prevail once these are established in our habitable area that was spoken of so highly and so natural that it's like the best place that is in the whole area, I feel, of Shenango County. With that being said, I'd just like to have everybody think about that fact, because there is just too much and too many people that can be affected by diverse and ill consequences that we can't even determine unless we really, or somebody sits down and takes this type of survey, that we realize what will be the case at hand at any given moment in the future with this system provided to us, if it should be, which I don't feel it should either. So I thank you very much for your time. Good evening.
Yeah, anyone else wishing to speak?
Go ahead. Michelle Hartwell, I live on High Bridge Road, and I also have some concerns about the setbacks.
Gonna have to speak louder.
Sorry. In our proposed wind law, I reference page 9, which is on the commercial setbacks, commercial wind tower setbacks, which states that they are measured from the center of each wind turbine. And being that the setback proposed is 1.25 times the height to the non-participating boundary, property boundaries, not residence, which I understand is 2 times. I'd like to know where that puts the huge bases that these towers set on. How close is that going to put that? How big are they?
18 acres.
Right. So, and how is that not going to affect runoff and our water tables? That's very close to boundaries. And the other thing that I want to bring up is I read an article. It was in windwaste.com about an Oklahoma wind farm called Canadian Hills. I know that's not a Calpine, it's an Apex, but Apex's safety standards for their employees states that a turbine has to be turned off remotely when the employees are within 1,400 feet of that turbine. So I'd like to know, has the board investigated what Calpine's safety standards are for their employees? And being that 1.25 is only about 1,000 feet, why are we obligated to live and work within the unsafe standards that they put on their turbines for their employees?
There you go.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Deb Munyon, I'm on Main Street, and I have real concern that it feels like to the residents of this town that our town board is in support of Calpine and not in support of the residents who elected y'all. It doesn't feel like we're getting our questions answered. There's no, and I think because your style of meeting doesn't allow for us to have free discussion, that we're able to get the questions answered that we need. And nowhere yet have I seen anybody even address in this comprehensive plan or your renewable energy systems local law anything about decibels. These things are going to be loud, and you're planning 30 of them, okay? To me, that's a huge concern when I just said not 10 minutes ago that the state has already said that anything more than plus 20 over the level of 25 is intolerable, and these things have a decibel level of 45. That puts them at the intolerable level. I still don't feel like the town board is answering our questions. We elected you guys to protect us and to do a job for us, and we're very, very unhappy. Thank you.
I'm just going to briefly read this document. I'm sorry.
Answer our questions.
This is Town Law Manual. Although open meetings law discussed further in hint gives the public the right to attend town board meetings and to listen to the town board deliberations, the public does not have the right to speak at town board meetings except as provided by rules created by the town board. No other people, that's state law. We have developed public comment policy, which we have followed, and we do allow public comment. Next.
Well, there is a law for you guys called NIMBY. NIMBY, you know what NIMBY means? Not in my backyard. That's everybody runs across the nation. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Texas, Alpine, they did it in Pennsylvania. They were out when they started having problems. Not in my backyard. Keep in mind, and you can have a class action. They think they can do because they're big and they go to the governor and they have the eminent domain, all that stuff. Not in my backyard.
Next.
I'm Francesca Teste on property on Shumway Hill Road.
Can you speak up, please?
Sure. Francesca Teste, I own property on Shumway Hill Road. My hearing's not so good. When the lady over there asked you, why are you making the setbacks less than Calpine initially asked, did you actually say, I don't know?
No.
Well, what did you say? Because I didn't quite hear it.
I'm going to have to go back and listen to the tape.
Well, you have someone taking your minutes. Could you? Or can you just answer, why are the setbacks less than what Calpine was asking?
Calpine did not ask for those setbacks.
Well, why did you not say that when she said that? Who is deciding the setbacks? Let me just
Well, I'm going to back up. This is public comment. It's not question and answer.
Well, why shouldn't it be, though? Because, I mean, you
It's
just
not.
said you can make the rules for how this goes. Now, I mean, if your interest as a public servant is to listen to the people in the town's concerns and answer our worries and our questions, why wouldn't you have that interest? I mean, where do we go to find out who's cutting this deal? Who's deciding on these setbacks? I mean, I'd like to know. It should be public knowledge. It should actually be done in the public. I'd like to know what expert is giving you input on what a setback should be. Why should that be a secret? This is a democracy. You work for us. We have property rights here. You're selling them down the drain by just saying, I don't know. You're putting up a screen so this deal is done. When I've talked to you and I've talked to Ken in the past, all I've gotten the takeaway is, well, it's really out of our hands. Now, these people in this group that you want to like shut up, they've done their homework. And you haven't. And they're not representing me. You are. So I'm wondering, like, if they've done their homework, what the hell have you guys been doing? When I'm seeing my dreams and my hopes sold down the river, and I know there's other people here who've been in their homes, I haven't even built mine yet, who've been in their homes, that they hoped I would go to their children. You're seeing their lives wrecked, and we can't even get an open thing where you could say, well, look, we talked to these experts, they told us this, Calpine asked for this, and this is how we came to this. Is it really a crime to ask, like, how did this get determined?
Terry Ives, I'm a member of the board, and I'd like to ask, how many have been to see a wind turbine? How many have been right up close? Okay, we got some.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. A week ago Sunday, my wife and I went to Little Falls. My nephew has one 1,500 feet from his home. We heard the sound from it. We walked right up to it. I touched it. I've got video of my touching it, so that I did a little research to see how loud it was.
How tall was it?
400, just over 400 feet.
And we're looking at close to 70.
Excuse me, we do not, I think we're going to shut down. First of all, we're over half an hour. We do
Should
not
I
have
just address Mr.
conversation
Ives
back.
and thank
You
you
need
for
to sit down.
standing up and saying that. Mr. Ives, you are being disingenuous. Because the sound will depend on the topography. Any idiot knows that. So that your son or whoever's windmill you were touching and feeling and getting all happy about, it has nothing to do with my windmill or the other people's windmill. It depends very much on the topography, where those vibrations are going, how the topography is going to send them back. So that is disingenuous at best. But thank you for answering. It's nice to know that there is somebody on that board that does not need a ventriloquist.
Okay, we'll have a vote of the board. I have a proposal to shut down public comment at this time.
There's one gentleman, why don't we let him speak and then...
You guys are going to have a town hall meeting so we can ask questions.
We haven't had a town hall meeting.
Why not?
So when?
The question is when.
Question was when?
When?
Haven't scheduled one.
Can you go ahead and do that?
We haven't discussed it.
Well, maybe you should discuss it.
I have a motion to shut public comment down. Do I get a second? Second.
I have one comment to end it.
No.
And then it'll be
Second.
the last one. You just allowed
Motion
it.
second, discussion by the board.
That's ridiculous.
All in favor?
I've lived here my whole life, born here, and I am so disappointed in this town board and their behavior. Very disappointed.
I wanted to make the meeting shut
Calpine board, that's what it is.
Okay, moving on.
The only way is to shut down the conversation. Well, there's an option.
We had a motion by
Carrie.
Second.
Carrie, second by Guilford.
Second by Gilda.
Have discussion.
What?
Should we have discussion?
You asked for discussion.
Do we want discussion? Yes, discussion.
On the motion?
Sure.
You think we should continue, let them speak, or?
If they can be solved, when they start attacking the board, I think that's where we need to draw the
Well,
line.
and we have,
When they start attacking Terry and saying bad things about him, I think that's where we have to draw the line. We need civility. If they want to be civil, I
Everyone
would
has a
gladly
statement.
listen. But if they start attacking us, that's another story.
do we want to put a time frame on this?
Give it a pick a specific time. It's 10 of, almost 10, it's a little past 10 of 8, or 10 of 7. So,
We're trying to have public hearing.
so you've said half an hour, and I think we're about at that, but if you want to give it 10 more minutes away from that. Okay, so you want to get 10 more minutes and say, so, that's it.
Okay, at this time, we have decided to continue with public comment for 10 minutes, with the request that it remains respectful. Just 1 second, please. We will finish at 8:05.
Can you come to the front, please? We can't hear you.
Good morning. I live in County Road 37. Traffic code, I have no problems with natural energy. But I think the issue that everybody is missing is I think if we could sit in the boardroom at Calpine, they're like looking for some rural hick town. Who can we take advantage of? And that's exactly what's happening. We're getting nothing out of it, and believe me, somebody's gonna make a lot of money. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. Why would somebody from Texas want to come to Guilford?
Subsidies.
Exactly.
Government subsidies.
Exactly.
Once again.
And has anybody researched that? Are they an ethical company? No, these are the issues. It's not so much the environmental issues that are the problem to me. It's just not. No one's checked any of this out. And there is some reason, maybe call me a skeptic, but I tell you, somebody's planning on making money, and it's an expensive life. It's the same thing that happened, not that I'm comparing it to fracking, but remember when those companies came from out west to Pennsylvania? Destroyed the people down there, didn't care. Well, these people in Texas are not going to care about us either.
Continuing, next.
You.
Dan Harrington, Keach Road. We all want our town to prosper, but pushing through a project of this magnitude is a mistake. Guilford is by no means a poor town, and I can't think of one property that's so run down that it would look better with a 650-foot turbine on it. The promise of economic gain from the High Bridge Industrial Project is untrue. As property values are affected, the rest of the town will carry the load. It's only common sense that a 650-foot turbine spinning next to a home or property will greatly decrease its value. I asked the town, if you are convinced that there will be no effect to property values, then why not put a property value guarantee in the wind law? Without a property value guarantee, you are forcing taxpayers to take that gamble. Let Calpine assume the risk. The setbacks put forth in the draft wind law are unsafe. Please see the 2-scale graphic on our website, saveguilford.com, showing how a 650-foot turbine at only 1,300 feet from a home is way too close. This will be devastating to residents who will be forced to live this close to a turbine. I've heard that Calpine has agreed to turn off turbines for Camp Missouri during the summer season. Why is it acceptable for all other residents at the same distance to live, raise our children, try to sleep at night, and try to enjoy our land at the same distance from a 650-foot turbine spinning day and night? I want to remind you that this setback also includes a 40-foot deep by 60-foot wide hole being blasted into the ground, only 1,300 feet from a home. There are serious concerns regarding our drinking water. When Calpine first had their open house meetings, they told me directly that they were asking for 1,500 feet plus the height of the turbine. That was what their asking setback was. You have now given them a far closer setback than they initially asked for. We are asking you to reconsider the setbacks. Please give all residents a reasonable and safe setback distance. We're not asking for the project to go away. We're simply asking for a wind law that protects our health, safety, and well-being. You are writing the wind law, and you have sworn to do just that. If a safe wind law makes the project unviable, then not only, as George stated at our last meeting, is Guilford not an optimal place for wind, it is not at all a place for 650-foot turbines. There are simply too many homes. Homes that are not just filled with people. They are filled with our families, our children, our friends, and our neighbors. The 1 year of construction, the leaseholders, and the promise of a handful of jobs should not overrule our health, safety, and well-being. Thank you.
Okay, once again, are you recommending to set back?
10 times the tip height from a property line.
Okay, next. Yes.
My name's Loretta Trefferson, and I live on Phillips O'Dell Road. I just want to say that I'm really sad, and I'm really good at speaking in public, and I'm shaking because I care so much about the people of this town. And unless you're all gonna leave after Calpine puts the windmills up, I'm not sure why there can't be a give and take. I agree with Rebecca Young that we need to have some kind of a town hall style meeting where you can answer questions and also share your fear, because if you're not scared after hearing all of the facts, then you're not listening and you're being ignorant. At this point, I'm directing concerned people to the SaveGuilford.com website, because there is so much amazing information that's set in facts and research on the website that I feel like it's way more powerful than the Town of Guilford website. And that really saddens me, because you live here, and many of you have lived here for a really, really long time. And I just want to cry, because my kids are here. I told them they don't have to go to school tomorrow if they can be good at this meeting and understand what it means to participate in civics and understand what's happening in their community. And what's happening is that there are a lot of people here that are finally in the know about Calpine's mysterious endeavors to make lots of money and leave us in a sinking ship. And they're really scared. And if you're not scared too, then Calpine must have some money in your pocket. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Next. In the back, yes.
I'd like to reiterate, Jeannie Backus, taxpayer and citizen of the town of Guilford. I would like to reiterate that I would like to see the town board put in a property value protection agreement. This can be negotiated with Calpine. As it was said before, a lot of people have put a lot of money in the property they have here. And if this is not put in place and our property values go to nothing, if your whole life has been invested in this piece of property and you can't sell it, what do you have left? The town board members have asked for the position, and we have given it to you to protect us and to listen to all of us and to take into consideration what is in the best interest of the town. A couple other things that I'd like to point out. The height limit is still being discussed. It literally says that. At what point will the height limit be set? Will this be put into law with the height limit still being discussed? And if it's being discussed, let's drop it. We don't have to have them so high. Also, there's a line in there about the permits for state and federal wildlife, including the incidental take permits. There's no requirement for them to get them prior to the project. I'm not sure why this is. It could be my own ignorance. I don't know why they would have to wait to get any permits. I feel that all permits that are necessary from any place should have to be in hand before anything is started. And I don't know why the town would think it was okay to wait. Thank you.
Okay, next.
George Dewey's and waves his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Lane Reef, Marble Road. I have a quick question. One of the last meetings, the phrase in reference to Calpine and the laws, overly burdensome. I would like to know, is anyone considering what would be overly burdensome for the residents. You seem to be focused on catering to Calpine, and we're playing second fiddle. We should be playing first fiddle. The other issue that I have is with sensitive sites. What could be more sensitive than people living in their own homes? I don't understand that, and why is that setback less than these sensitive sites? Thank you.
My name is Debbie Pratt. I live on Furnace Hill Road. I have a concern that I'm not sure has been addressed to the board relative to the impact that the proposed Highbridge industrial wind turbine project is having on the town of Guilford. That impact is a neighbor against neighbor split that is going on between long-standing relationships and friendships in our community. One of the greatest benefits of our rural township has enjoyed is a close-knit community and the fellowship of working together in our organizations, the fire departments, churches, schools, the historical society, the Klee House, farming, and other charitable organizations. I imagine business owners are afraid to say anything one way or the other, and professionals as well. The stakes are high. A tiny fraction of the town's population has been offered a chance to make more money than they ever imagined, seemingly falling out of the sky. I understand how this must feel, and the excitement of having extra funds to perhaps take care of expenses or just feel secure. But what about the other larger populace? Those whose hopes and dreams were to live in the peace, beauty, and tranquility that rural Shenango County offers. Our winding hilltop roads, amazing vistas, and wildlife. The thrill of seeing eagles make a successful return and thrive. Our opposition is not that we have not gotten a piece of the pie. It's that we don't want to lose what we have, our health, our property values, the quiet, the dark night skies. We could have moved anywhere we chose, but we chose Guilford for just those qualities. I want to be able to attend spaghetti dinners and chicken barbecue dinners, to attend group meetings and not feel uncomfortable. Calpine has brought civil war to our town, and whether they build the turbines or not, Guilford has been split. What is the legacy of this town board going to be? I hope that you will truly protect all of our town's neighbors and not write a wind law for Calpine's benefit. Please don't choose to be remembered as the board who sold us out. Thank you.
I think it's really super imperative that we have a meeting where we can get some questions answered. If this isn't the correct format, then so be it. I heard some discussion a few minutes ago about the board's worried about being verbally attacked, but our entire way of life is being attacked. Everything about our lives is being attacked, and we deserve answers.
Okay, we're 5 after. Yes?
I got about three after.
Okay, wait.
Wayne Jefferson, I live on Phillipsville Road. Has anyone on the board checked with our nearby county, Madison County, and see the problems that they're having with their windmills, and Tug Hill, and see the problems they're having there? I think it would be very interesting to investigate that a little bit.
Yeah, I did go over to Buffalo to examine the windmills there. I went to see them at Arkwright. My impression there, I don't know the height of these windmills, and I realize these are bigger. My impression there that I could hear some noise. To me, it was a whooshing noise. I was about 150 feet from the windmill, and it reminded me of ocean waves. But then on the way home, I went to near Attica, and we arrived at one hilltop, and I saw at least 100 windmills across the horizon, which was, in my mind, it certainly is new. We know we didn't have these 100 years ago. I did ride up close to them. I asked town clerks what was happening with them. One woman said, "My mother hates the windmills." She said, "But I feel differently about them." So you're quite right, it has divided families. And I didn't, when I went on the country roads, they were set in farmers' fields near the farmhouse.
Yeah, I get-
And
yeah.
I didn't see an industrial wasteland when
I
I was
guess that's
there.
what I'm talking about, and actually, the smaller windmills, they don't look near as bad. We're talking about 30, almost Eiffel Towers on the highest peaks.
35% more than the ones we
Right.
see.
So what I'm looking at is they're having all kinds of problems because they've reached their saturation, their 15 years lifespan. And I think, I'm not sure it was Tug Hill or it was the ones in Madison County, right next door. They've turned them off. And there was an article, it was maybe four years ago in the Daily News, and I think we were putting that on our website, right?
Yeah.
And it's very interesting, and it just shows you how keen that you have to be to make sure you don't make the mistakes of the past. And they're almost, because I guess some of the windmills were made by an American company or installed, run by an American company. Then it was sold to a Spanish company in Spain, and now they're talking about these have to be torn down. So I'm not sure we have anyone in the town of Guilford that's going to go to Spain and try to get them. In other words, some real important things that we have to look at, things that happened in the past. If we're going to get the windmills, let's go to work and make sure that they don't snooker us, because that's exactly what the Daily News said in the article, that they were snookered. Okay. To take down a 700-foot windmill, it might be quite expensive. And if they only have a life of 15 or 20 years, and no matter what they say that they're much better today, it doesn't, you can fool everybody some of the time, you know what I'm saying? So it's a real problem, and if we're going to do it, let's be very, very careful that they don't take advantage of us.
Could I add that I'm grateful to hear the comments tonight. There are several things that I wrote down. I have been watching the speakers.
Yeah.
If you saw me look down at my paper, it was because I heard something of interest, and I can't look at you and write at the same time. But I did capture a few things that I had not thought of before, and when it comes time for us to discuss this, I will use that, and I will ask those questions.
That website, and you'll see even Tug Hill, I think there's 100 of them there, and they're all obsolete today. So, anyway.
And Wayne, I'm just going to briefly answer, because some people say we're not doing anything. I spoke with the town of Meredith in detail. I looked at some things on Windwatch. I have spoken with Lewis County, with their assessment department, with their county chairman regarding Maple Ridge, which is one of the older, larger, and other projects that they have going on. I spoke with the town of Horton in New York. I spoke with the town of Allegheny, which was suggested. I spoke in detail with the supervisor in Madison to get an update on that article. I read that article.
Yeah, all right. What did he say?
What did he say? The supervisor said that when the pilot ended, they were reassessed. He said the amount of payment was the exact same as what the pilot had provided, although the distribution was different. Under the pilot, the county didn't get any money, and the school district and the town shared. When the pilot ended and they were assessed just as property, the school got a larger portion, probably because their tax rate was higher. The county got money, and the town got much less. And he thought it was very fair and equitable.
Okay. I think it was $60,000
Correct.
they were getting, and of course, after the pilot, they thought they were going to get some more, and they were told they would get some more, and it never happened.
They did. They did get more.
And now, in the northern area, they claim that they were getting a certain amount of money, but the money didn't stop. It was coming from the state or something like that. So it's our taxpayer money that we're getting back again. It's just, then the idea of tearing some of these down, it's going to be a serious problem. Unless you have, when this building was built, you had a performance and a payment bond. And any construction work that the town goes into, or any municipality, they ask for that bond from an insurance company, not a promise from a company that now is in Spain or something like that. So the only thing is that bond is expensive. When when a company gets a bond, it might be 2% of the cost of that project. If it's $1 million project, it mounts up. The insurance company is going to look at that bond cost. They're not going to just carte blanche say we want to charge this company for their performance bond. It's according to the risk. And if they want 5 or 10% of whatever this could cost to tear these things down, they're going to ask for more money than they'll want to spend on insurance. But it's to protect us in case because the way I read the article, someone's going to get snookered to kick those towers down. And then I was reading another article in the desert in California that these things are just sitting there all rusting away, and they're dangerous. So anyway, that's. Thank you very much.
120% decommissioning bond is what we're talking about.
Speak up.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have put down 120% decommissioning bond. This is one of the stipulations that is put in here.
Just the last meeting I heard that.
Well, a letter of credit, okay. We've been going back and forth with the lawyer on that.
An irreversible letter of credit bought by some bank. And our lawyers are you our lawyer?
Yes.
So it looks like it's a legitimate thing, and it's for how much money?
100. The proposal in the law is for 120% of the full decommissioning cost estimate.
Without salvage value.
And also not factoring in salvage value, and it's something that the company would pay the entire thing for in advance of the permit.
Is there any? These have a lot of oils in, any kind of generator. There's a lot of oil. And I noticed that some of them, our neighbor, Madison County, one of the blades fell off one of the windmills back 5 or 6 years ago. I'm not sure what kind of damage that could do. It could kill people, of course. But, I mean, are they insured? Are we getting an insurance policy? Yes. So, and you feel that that's sufficient, whatever they're going to insure for that type of damage? The other thing is, of course, if motors, most of us work on things here. We know motors leak oil. And of course, this would be thrown through the air. I mean, there's a lot of we just want to make sure we protect it, that's all.
Okay. We're going to move on with our regular board meeting at this point in time. Do we want to review the draft?
The draft of the law.
Yep, draft of the law.
Want me to walk through it, George?
What?
Want me to walk through it?
Sure.
Okay. So I'll try to speak loud.
We can't have speaking. We're not going to be able to pick this up on our recorder. You want to talk? I'm going to answer you outside.
I don't have a very loud voice, but I'll do my best to see so that people can hear me walk through the law with them.
Stand up, maybe that would help.
Well, this is going to take a while. I'm going to say I'll speak as loud as I can. Okay. So I'll go through the sections we've changed since the last law, the last turn of this from our last board meeting that people asked me to look at and asked me to address changes.
Brady, do you want to come around this way so when
Sure.
you're speaking?
You want to switch seats with me? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, this is what we're doing with it.
Yes.
This is what we had before.
Well, I can't.
This is what we had
That's the
before.
old one.
This
You
is
should have a new
current.
one in your.
New one was in your file.
Yeah, I just have, yeah, it's right here.
Brady, as we read the law, can we ask you some of the questions that were raised by the company?
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's appropriate, or maybe
Yes.
at the end of the
I don't understand. Do you want
I'm good. I'm good. So I'll go through the changes from the last version that we circulated and based on the discussion we had last meeting. And I'll also just want to remind everybody about certain provisions that maybe aren't changed but have come up tonight and just point out those provisions in case you want to take a look at them. And I also made some changes that are just formatting and definitional things that I noticed were needed clarification. On page 3, definition of sensitive site. We had a lot of discussion about sensitive site, that definition last meeting. and further defining the 5 different, well, there were only 3, but I've expanded it to 5 to be a little bit more clear. And so I'll go through each one of those as we've discussed it, okay? Page 3, top of page 3, sensitive site. So
They start in 2. Starts here at bottom of 2, right? Yeah. It actually starts at the bottom of 2. It didn't before, but it does.
Right.
Yeah.
Bottom of 2.
mine doesn't for some reason, but whatever. Okay.
Okay, so
2 or
we're on
3.
the same page.
Okay, so there was confusion about, because we're talking, the sensitive site incorporates not just certain buildings, but also water resources and certain properties, so it was difficult to define them all in one way, so I've done my best to try to address and make these more specific. So it now says all school property. Before it said schools, it now says school property. The idea being that it encompasses not just, a school, the building, but the school property itself. So the sensitive site itself would be the school property rather than the school district, or the school building. And then number 2 is a number of water resources that were identified by the board that come either within the town or within contact of the town. And we had a discussion about how do we define a water resource and the distance from a water resource that may move. So I did my best to address that by saying each of the following defined by the water's edge at the time a WECS permit application is submitted. So since it may move, you got to pick a reasonable time when you're going to say the water's edge. So again, at any point stop me if you want to discuss something, but that was what I understood the board wanted me to do from last meeting. Number 3, we had listed Camp Missouri, but then there was a discussion about, it's a big property. There's some portions that are undeveloped that are large tracts of undeveloped property. So I further clarified that to say any developed property owned by Camp Missouri. So you guys are more familiar with this than I am. So if that doesn't make sense, let me know. All property comprising Mount Upton Park. Again, there's a discussion about what is the park, and so
field and everything.
Okay, so there are parcel boundaries that would enclose the park. So I would interpret this to be the whole thing. Okay. And the last one here, all properties upon which the following are located, and this is where we listed a number of historic or important sites in the town: Old Mill Restaurant, Oakdale Community Church, Guilford Center Cemetery, North Guilford Church, Jewel Homestead. So again, we're identifying here the properties, not necessarily the building. Okay. Is everybody good with that? Okay. I further tried to clarify the definition of total height. So in certain locations here, especially in the setbacks, it uses the term total height. I just wanted it to be absolutely clear what the definition of height means. And you can see how it's been changed there. The height of the wind turbine measured from the tip of the turbine blade when vertically aligned with the nacelle of the WECS. So basically, when one of the tips is directly pointing above the tower, that's the total height. So it can't get any. As I understand it, that my attempt here was to make it so that it couldn't get any taller than that.
So this is the same thing as the tip height?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was
okay. All right.
really clear that the tip has to be measured from the tip when it's directly pointing over the tower.
Okay.
That was the idea here. I believed it was a little confusing using different terms. I had wind energy deriving towers. That was from this prior version of this law, and also using the term wind turbines. So I just eliminated that prior term and just went with wind turbines throughout. So you'll see in a number of locations I just deleted that other term just to make it clearer. Are we good on this page? Yep. Yep. So we're in this section, the requirements for non-commercial wind in section 2, going from page 3 to page 4. The last, number 8, in the middle of page 4, throughout this whole law, we had some discussions about lighting. and it was a little bit inconsistent, and there were some conflicting things there about that. As I understand it, the FAA will have standards, minimum standards that they have to meet. If it's a certain height or a certain size, the FAA is going to say, this is the type of lighting you need, or this is the minimum lighting you need. So I've referenced FAA requirements here, basically saying that it's not going to be artificially lit, they're not going to use strobe lighting, and they're going to use angled light that's angled downward, except as otherwise may be required by FAA. So if they're going to have lighting, it's got to be in compliance with FAA, and it's got to meet those standards.
That's much better than the way it was before.
Okay, and also I've addressed it because, so there's lighting when the thing is done, right? But there's also going to be lighting when it's being constructed. And if it's evening time and they need lights, that's not FAA, right? That's for human safety. That's for safety of the workers. So what I incorporated here was, it says to assure human safety during construction of the WECS or is required by FAA. So during construction, I would think they would need some wiggle room for lighting because just if it's for human safety, okay? Again, that's something a little different than what we discussed last time, but.
Well, I had a question about the FAA because the way it was worded before, it sounded like we were trying to supersede them, which we can't.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Any comments on, so this was changed here in non-commercial wind, but you'll see the same changes all the way through here, so. Okay, so the next section, section 3, are the requirements for commercial wind. I didn't have any changes here. The next section are the application requirements. So if the project were commercial size but small enough to not be regulated by the state, they would submit a permit, and these would be the application requirements for that permit. Okay, just a reminder as to how this works. Fix your typo that you found on I. Hilda.
Yes, thank you.
The next page, page 6, these are just definitional changes where I was eliminating that term wind energy deriving tower. Just a comment here, you'll see that as part of their application, they have to include their insurance requirements, their insurance certificates that are required later on. So the insurance coverage minimums are later on in this law, but as part of their application requirements, they have to show that they have a certificate for that. I just wanted to point that out because that was brought up tonight. And I also want to point out roads. So in T, it says that they have to demonstrate compliance or inapplicability of town road maintenance or road use local laws, which may include, but not limited to, a proposed road use agreement. So we've talked about this before, but although there's no road use agreement, or I'm sorry, road use local law in place right now in Guilford, that's something that's being considered.
Yes.
And also, in my experience, they will approach you with a road use agreement that will address road use concerns. So that's, as part of their initial application, they would need to show that they're either complying with the local law you have in place, or they have a road use agreement in place already with the town. Okay?
Or both.
Well,
We could have a lower
I suppose
and
yes, you could have both. Usually, though, when you have an agreement, it ends up taking place of the requirements that are in the law. So if the agreement were ever to be canceled or found non-enforceable, it'd fall back onto your law that protects you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, next page, page 7. So they have to provide a number of mapping plans and plans that show certain things. And again, this is where the lighting comes into play. Again, they need to show a plan of lighting. And I addressed, again, the same concerns here. They need to show lighting that complies with FAA standards and, again, isn't artificially lit except as required by FAA, doesn't use strobe lights except as required by FAA, and will use lighting that's angled downward so as to minimize light pollution on adjacent properties, again, except as required by FAA.
Maybe shall not allow. What does that say?
So the lighting plan shall not show wind turbines to be artificially lit. I'm sorry, let me back up. And if this is confusing, we can.
Yeah, the wording's a
Not
little
show
Let me-
wind turbines to be artificially lit. Shall not show the use of, I think you want the
Yeah, we
word
get
of
what you're
after use.
Yeah, you're right.
All the lighting being-
Okay, got it.
Okay. That's a little awkward wording there. The lighting plan shall not show wind turbines to be artificially lit. You might want to reword
Show
that.
the use of.
It just seems awkward.
Oh, yeah, what does that mean, show the use? Shall not use?
Shall not show
Um,
wind turbines to be
Yeah,
artificially.
I see what you're saying.
Maybe allow or something, I guess. Or permit. You might want to rethink.
Yeah,
that.
okay. I mean,
Rethink the wording
does everybody
there.
agree with the concept, though?
Yeah, the
Okay.
concept's, it's
All right,
just,
I'll-
it's
I'll-
this awkward
I'll
wording
try
right
to,
there.
I'll try to fix that wording.
Okay. No, the concept's fine.
Okay. Okay, so page 8. So there was a comment about, if you look at Z, the shadow, it's requiring that they provide a shadow flicker study. And it used to say that the study shall identify areas where shadow flicker may interfere with residences. And really, the concern is interference with the occupants of residence. It's not, you're not gonna have shadow flicker affecting the residence itself, but affecting the people who live there. So I just wanted, and also I wanted to expand it. I think there was a discussion about not just residences, but shadow flicker impact on schools, businesses, and other occupied buildings.
Yeah.
So again, the occupants of those buildings. Okay?
Good.
Is everybody good with that?
Mm-hmm. And that describes measures to eliminate it.
Yeah, and again, these are the application requirements. Later on, in the next section, we get to the standards they have to, live by when they build it. Okay, I think the rest of this is just, it's nothing substantive, just changes to definitions. I did miss a semicolon, or a colon there in the beginning of section 5, and I caught that after I sent it to you guys. All right, page 9. There was a comment about ice throw and blade throw. I just wanted to point out we've addressed that in B9. So it requires that they be located in a manner that minimizes the risk to public health and safety posed by ice throw and blade throw. And then there was a comment last meeting about forcing them to report any incidents to the town board. So if there's actually an incident of blade throw or ice throw, they have to report that to the town board. So I've included that requirement. Everybody good here? Okay.
Yeah.
And then here's right below that is the standard for shadow flicker, okay? And then it also carries through that concept of not just residences, but other buildings, the occupants of other buildings. So it says, no non-participant residence, school, business, or other occupied building shall be subjected to more than 30 hours of shadow flicker annually. So I will share with you that that's the standard I understand to be applied in some other projects, but I will tell you that in another project, the other project that's going on right now, there's been a request by, at one point there was a request by Department of Public Service to require them not just to have an annual 30-hour flicker requirement, but also a daily limit for anybody who's a non-participant resident.
Okay.
So there was a request for a daily limit of 30 minutes max. Again, I've not seen that show up in actual siting board decision or actual project, but that's a request in the one that's out, the other one that's going on right now. So that's something, if you want to consider it, you can. I wanted to make you aware of it.
Well, it would all depend on how fast the sun moves. as to how long the flicker would be there. You know, is the sun,
Well, I mean, as part of their study, they have to model this. They have to, with the turbines they've chosen, model, or the ones that they're considering, model the impacts. That would be the study. So they would have to be able to show that the design is not going to exceed that. So yeah, granted, that's hard. I don't claim to have any idea how they would do that, but.
Is this the same picture?
Yes.
Okay.
The Bluestone Wind project that was proposed in that project. So I don't know if you want to come back to that, if you want to, I'm on, oh, sorry, page 9.
The bottom?
9.
Oh, up there, yeah.
Yeah, it's on 10.
Right.
On number 10 on page 9.
Yes. And, again, just so you have the full picture of what what's going on in other projects. That's been a proposal. The company in that case has contested it for the reason that you've suggested, that it basically is very hard to model that sort of thing, and that's why. So there's a debate going on that. I can, again, it's up to you how you want to handle it tonight, if it's something you want me to.
I'd like to see some more research
Sure.
on that one.
You can send us more information on it.
Yeah, I'd like to see some more information on that.
Okay, so I'll circulate what I can find on this. If I can find if I can pull the arguments that have been made on this, in the other project, I'll share that with you. That's probably your best.
Because I would think
your
on
best bet.
certain times of the year, the angle is going to be different, and maybe sometimes when there wouldn't be any flicker at all.
Oh, no, yeah.
And
well,
then other
yeah.
times, though, it might go beyond the 30 minutes, so I have to
Well, that's
check onto that.
right.
Check
Right.
into that.
Okay. All right, so number 11, right below that are the noise requirements. Okay? And again, I'm an attorney, I'm not a scientist, but I can only read what what I can find. My understanding is that although the word infrasound is not used here, my understanding is that B and C address that issue. This is pulled, one of my colleagues pulled this directly from the section of the Casadega project, which is another project, the only project that I'm aware of that got approved recently. And my understanding is that these two sections are what the state settled on as saying this is the standard.
This Casadega project?
B and C.
Okay.
Now, I'll try to clarify that because if I know there's concerns about infrasound, so I will try to confirm that that's in fact what this is addressing. I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah, because TDA is referring to the infrasound.
it says perceptible vibration, which
Right.
that's what infrasound is, the vibration.
It's not perceptible, but it's a vibration.
Not perceptible by the ear, but by the
By
body.
the brain, maybe your nervous system perceives.
By the body, but not by the hearing. It's not within the hearing limit.
Right.
It's below hearing limit, but it's perceptible by the body,
Well, by the nervous system, maybe.
by your body, which could
Well,
be
the body.
muscle, could
But
be
not the
bone,
ear.
could be whatever.
Which is part of the
Well,
body.
B is audible. C
Right.
is perceptible, which doesn't necessarily mean audible. It could be I understand that to mean your body, any sense, I suppose.
Any sense relevant.
And these standards that's been referenced here, again, it's my understanding that these are what's available, the acceptable guidance on this at this time. That's my understanding.
Up in 11.
I'm sorry, yeah, 11, B and C, these standards, the ANSI standards
Right.
are what I understand to be the applicable standards here.
Okay.
Okay? But again, if anybody learns of something different, please let me know. We good on this page? All right, page 10.
Yeah, I noticed in the bottom of C, there was a mention of this tonight, someone mentioned this. about center of the public roadway, which is something we talked about last time, which you changed to center instead of putting it on the right of way, which is better.
So on page 10, this is the setback language, and just, I want to point out two things. The initial paragraph, or the initial opening sentence to this, it indicates that these measurements are from the center of the wind turbine. And to be, my understanding of that was, literally, if you were going to estimate literally the center of a tower, right in the middle of the foundation, that would be where you're measuring from. That's how I understood it to be. And then it also says that if let's say more than one of these standards apply, the more strict one would apply. So here's an example how that would happen. So if it's 1.25 times the tower height from the boundary line of a non-participant, but let's say that house is right next to the boundary line.
That'll be edited out of the film.
Gotta wait, Gail went to the bathroom, so.
Oh,
all right, so we'll wait a second.
Give her half a minute.
All set? Okay. So as I was saying, the most restrictive setback would apply. So if, let's say, the 1.25 setback from the non-participant boundary line, and then you had a house that was right next to it, which is subject to the 1.5 boundary line. I'm sorry, 2.0 times boundary line. It's the 2.0 that would apply. Okay? So it's the most restrictive that would apply.
Okay.
You know, the idea being that if let's say somebody has a huge piece of property, you know, that may have lots of land, you've got the balance between the two, but the stricter will apply.
Now, is there any setback for participants? I don't see that mentioned.
No.
So it could be right up to their building they live in?
Yes.
There's no protection for participants?
Correct. And but, I mean, we certainly can add that, but the idea, the issue with that is if they're a participant, that means they have an agreement with Highbridge Wind. So, or any
So that should
whoever
be part of their
it is.
agreement.
So they have an agreement with them. So if we were to say, you know, if we were to put a standard in place, it would be likely contrary to their own personal agreement. So this is meant to protect people who don't have an agreement with them, generally speaking, the setbacks anyway.
But if the property is then sold to another person, that person inherits the property?
That's true. That, as I understand it, again, I'm not a party. I don't know. I haven't looked at these leases specifically in detail, the ones in this project, but I believe they run with the land. So
that's my understanding.
But that would be the homeowner, even if they're participating, they would be responsible to themselves to what they put in their agreement. So if they want it if they want it 1.5 or 2 times the height, then when they do the agreement, they would put it in themselves. So they can allow.
Well, I guess it would be time to answer some of the questions that you raised tonight.
yeah, whenever you want. Sure.
I was very interested in the setback that we heard that at one time they had a stronger setback than we.
I thought we were going to include that. It was 2 times or 1,500 feet, whichever was greater.
Who proposed that?
I thought we discussed that the last time. that minimally it would be 2 times or 1,500 feet.
Is
I
that
thought
right?
it started out at like 1.25, and then
No.
Ken had mentioned 5, and then some other numbers came in, and then it kind of went back and forth.
Yeah, and then as it increased the height of the turbine from 650 to 675, that changed the numbers a bit. So I guess it was a moment of confusion.
Yeah, I think it's.
But I also am interested that we hear that the workers have to be protected when they're in the work zone. Within 1,400 feet of the turbine, as one of the persons said. I
will
have to look that up myself. But you would think that the resident would have the same protection, if not a stronger protection. So,
I can tell you that I've never received a request to make it larger than anything we have here.
Okay.
Not from Calpine. So,
well,
we talked about maybe 2 meetings ago, the fact that at one point we had 2 miles in for the sensitive site. That was my mistake. I put that in there and everybody was like, we didn't ask for that. So
Yeah.
I didn't,
It was
that was the
something
only thing. And
that
that
came in the
did not come from Calpine. I know that. That was my mistake.
It was a draft that, initial draft, and I think a typo maybe to.
Yeah.
Maybe it's supposed to be 2 times in around 2
I don't know.
miles.
I don't know. That was 2 drafts ago, and I don't honestly remember why. But I know I've never got more strict standards from.
yeah, but the 2 times the 675 is 1,350. And then I was a little startled tonight when I heard that workers are not allowed to go into the work zone within 1,400 feet of it. So I'm wondering why we're not a little more protective of the residents.
But we don't know what the Calpine standard is.
We have to
APEX
find that
standard.
out.
But we should find out if they have.
Their own standard
If
for
they have their own
participants, you
standard.
mean?
No, their own standard for shutting the turbines off when
the
workers are approaching them.
Oh, I have no idea.
I'm sure they
I honestly have no idea.
I think we should find that out. And I also think we should find out if they did, when they had that public meeting and greeting to the town, that did they offer a stronger setback than we have here? We heard that tonight.
I think they did, because I think it was 1,500 feet.
So
They requested that?
They didn't request
No.
it, they said that's what they would do.
Oh,
yeah, they had a public session, and they were meeting the community, and in there they said that it would be, and somebody else's memory, mine is a little, I can remember things from a half hour ago, and that's it. 1,500 plus the height of the turbine.
I just remember the 1,500.
Maybe we can ask them to find out, what is it they promised us here at
I
that
don't
open
remember
session?
what it was.
I don't know, I don't remember it myself.
And I don't know if, was that meeting recorded?
No.
So.
No,
Is that the first one?
that was their meetings, they weren't recorded.
their public meetings?
Their public meetings.
Yeah, that wasn't your meeting.
No, it wasn't a meeting.
Yeah.
I wasn't even. I don't think I was at that.
No, you weren't.
I don't know if it, was any of it recorded?
No, no.
I don't think so.
Let's move on.
Well, I can certainly. I mean, if you want, I can reach out to see. Well, I mean.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd be. I guess I mean, if they would have to. I mean, I can't imagine that they can't have a worker walk up to the turbine while it's running. I mean, how else do they assess it when it's?
They could, as long as they aren't going up into it, I would think.
Sure, they could.
Yeah, the way up above.
Because
The
they're
only
supposed to be 30 feet off the ground, the tip of the
The only time you
blade.
might turn them off is if they had to go up inside maybe and
And
do
do
something.
maintenance.
And do maintenance,
Yeah,
that
some
would be
kind
the
of
only time to
maintenance,
shut
yeah.
off. Because I was allowed, nobody there, I walked right up to it. There's no fence or anything around it and I looked up at it to see what the deflection was and so forth, so.
Yeah, I've been by the ones in Madison, and they're right next to them.
Yeah.
Right in the fields, they're not surrounded by a fence or anything.
Why don't we ask them, are there any
And I can
rules or
check
regulations
Yeah,
like
and
that?
other than just asking them, I can look around and see what I can
Right,
find
but-
If there's an
in other
industry
projects.
standard.
Yeah, like an industry
See
standard
if
on
there's
that.
an industry standard, that would
Yeah.
be the.
Right.
Yeah, for that.
Okay. I'll keep going through this section, okay? So there was a question about roadways and where do we measure? And so I clarified that it's the center of any public roadway. So that way it doesn't matter what size it is, it's the center.
That's a lot better. It's a lot better that way.
Go ahead.
Well, one more issue. The question was raised about the size of the concrete block that the windmill sits on. And the concern expressed was if you have a well, is that a reasonable setback? Is the foundation a reasonable setback from where your wellhead might be on your property? And I think that's a legitimate concern that people may have. So, how big is the block that the thing sits on?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
60 feet or so.
So maybe we should be a little more protective of
Your concern being like blasting? Like to
not only the blasting, but it could very well be that after the blasting is done, if it's too close to your house, it permanently damaging well, I don't know. I've heard that when they built the Highway 35, that happened to some people's wells.
I can tell you that in the other project, there are clear standards that have been agreed to about blasting. Like, for example, they can't, I'm drawing a blank on this, but it's at least 100 feet they can't blast, or maybe it's 500 feet. There are standards, there are clear standards. They were negotiated, basically. They were negotiated on that project. There was an original proposal by Bluestone on that project, and then there was feedback from DEC and from DPS, and then they reached an agreement.
But they were negotiated with DEC or DPS, not
Yeah.
with the municipality.
Oh, no, well, in the other project, we gave feedback on it.
Oh, okay.
So there was a standard that was reached there. I can pull that, because that's a fair point, because I don't think blasting's in here.
Maybe it should be.
Yeah. So let me make a note of that.
Yeah. And what the distance should be.
Right. And I forgot, there's also, to your point, there's standards for testing the potability of the water.
Sure.
In case there's leaching or there's, infiltration. So with certain ones that are too close, I remember there being standards for them to have to test before and then test after.
Mm-hmm.
So that can also be included.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good.
All right, so just back to the setbacks here. I want to make sure we go through each one of these. So the 2x setback for non-participant residences, there's a 2x setback for non-participant residences and a 2x setback for sensitive sites. So those are the same. I think there was a question brought up about that. So they're not less, it's the same. We also had a discussion last time, it was for number 4, 1.5 times total height from any non-participant commercial, retail, or industrial, it used to say structure, and we had a discussion about what does that mean. And I tried to capture what everybody wanted here, which was, I used a new term, building. So if you want to take a look at that and see if that is what you're looking for.
Well, it says any structure with at least 3 walls. So if you've got an open face barn. And a roof, yeah, so that would cover a barn or, that would cover it. Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay, we good with that?
Yeah.
And you'll see in 5 on sensitive site, I took out the reference to the boundary line of any parcel or a sensitive site, and I did that because in the definition of sensitive site, we now define specifically whether we're talking about the building or the property. So I don't want it to be confusion there. So I'm not limiting it there, it's just now that it's included in the definition as to whether. Yeah. Any further discussion on this?
No.
The next one is lighting. Again, just to be clear and to make sure there's no ambiguity here, I cross-reference back up to that prior standard, which says you're going to meet FAA requirements and all that. So that was the goal here. Okay with that? The next section is the height section. So, again, the only reason I put height limit still being discussed is I didn't have clear, clear direction as to what we wanted to do on that. So that's obviously going to come out once you decide what you want to do. If you want to put a height limit, what's it going to be? I just put that as a placeholder so that everybody knew that that wasn't what was set. It was just, that's still being discussed.
And the Met Towers, how tall are they? I thought they were taller than the...
No, they're shorter.
Oh, no. They'll be just shorter.
No, they're just meteorological.
And I had received emails with recommendations for height, with some documents to look at. One I really think was non-commercial, because when I read the document, it was 38 feet to 160 feet. Another recommendation was 350 feet. Another recommendation was 400 feet, and I think the town of Allegheny, when I looked at their local law, was 500 feet. All of those projects that were related to that were much earlier projects. I took a look in detail what happened in the town of Allegheny. There were other issues with the project there, but they were embroiled in a lawsuit with a company that cost the town $109,000 in legal fees. Fortunately, the courts decided that the developer had to pay that, so the town didn't get reimbursed. But they were at a 500 feet, but that was from 8 years ago. Took a look at the town of Meredith from 2007, and I know there was a post on Windwatch that said it was a town of Meredith law, and it's not. It's not what they adopted. It may have been an earlier draft or something, because they didn't have height requirements in their local law currently. I spoke with the town clerk there to verify and took a look at the documents to see what was filed with the state. So they're all over the place. I've talked to Public Service Department, and there's no standards for these things as far as height is concerned. We did receive a document. I don't know whether the rest of the board got that from Calpine today. It's in your email then, so I suggest you read that. And Brady, I don't know if you got that. I can forward that.
No, I've got it.
You got it. It came in late today. I thought I copied that, and it's in your packets, but I could be wrong. Came in this afternoon.
And I can basically summarize it if you want, or we can wait to, you can review it. They can review it themselves.
You read it. Do you want?
Minimize the number of
Towers, right. Yeah, Barry, why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, okay, so I mean, the question came up last meeting, and the representatives from Calpine had been asked the question to provide more detail on the options that there are for height and why they feel higher turbines are important. And so they had provided that earlier today. Basically, if I had to summarize it, I would say their argument is that taller turbines means less turbines. If they have smaller turbines, they have to have more of them, which creates an overall greater impact, is basically what their argument is. So they list them here. Basically for this area, for them to be economically feasible, any wind resource, they have to be taller than the ones that were done a decade ago. So the ones they're considering, all of them are at least 656 feet. Let's see what else. So their estimates are that those produce 40% more energy than the ones that were done 10 years ago. They say fewer turbines makes them less productive, which means they have to have more to meet basically to make them efficient enough to do the project, to do any project. There's reduced environmental impacts. They say the reduction in the number of turbines reduces the amount of forest clearing and ground disturbance required by a project. This reduces impacts to wildlife habitat, wetlands and water, cultural, historic resources, and environmental resources. Reduced transportation impacts. Basically, less turbines means less transportation, less delivery, less construction. Reduced local effects. Fewer turbines can be designed to fit a smaller area, and reduce the overall size of the project view shed versus lots of turbines that are smaller. That's essentially their argument as to why they're looking at tall ones versus small ones.
Brady, if they decide, if the project goes through and then they decide they want to expand it in the future, is it segmented? Does it go back through Article 10, or do they go in under the regulation on commercial?
That's a good question. I believe, my understanding is don't hold me to this. I think this is how it works. If they're going to put a new tower in a new place, that requires them to go back and seek a brand new certification with the state. I think if they change the towers, or if they're minor changes to the towers and they're not affecting the footprint, I think they can make certain changes like that. So I think what you're getting at is if they put in a turbine that's 600 feet, could they later put one in that's 1,000 feet 10 years from now? And that's way better.
I'm thinking if they have 20 of them in at 650 feet, once that project is in, and then they decide a few years later to put another 10 in.
They're going to have to start all over.
It would be an Article 10 expansion of the project is Article 10.
They'd have to go through basically the process again. Yeah.
That they wouldn't get through just by saying this is a new project and it's under the limit.
Based on the research I've done, this question has come up multiple times in other projects, and the consistent response that I've heard from everybody, including DPS, is that no, they can't do that. They can't add more turbines later after they've been approved. They'd have to come back for reapproval like they did the first time.
Okay. Now, have they given you a number? Because I've heard
Of
different
turbines?
numbers, a number of turbines.
I don't know.
Because I've heard 30, that was the original, then I heard 24 to 26, and I have no direct communication with the company. I've heard 21 now is what they're looking at. I can follow up and ask to find out what are they actually looking to do. That's going to be in their final application, I will assume.
Their final application, they will apply for the maximum amount that they think they can get, and then they may reduce it. They won't get more than it. So like in the Bluestone project, they applied, I think, for 33 or 34. They ultimately removed 6 of them.
They're down to 27.
So, but they apply for the most that they might want to build, is how I would put it. So I actually can look I think it would say in the initial preliminary scoping statement that they file, it probably says what they think is the max.
I think it was 30.
So that would be the max they're applying for. You want to keep moving?
Yeah, let's keep moving. Yep.
Okay. That's it for this page. Yeah.
You're going to delete note height when it's still being discussed.
Is that what?
I don't know.
I think it's still to be discussed.
I believe that sentence in
Okay.
there.
Oh, the
Could
only
be
thing
one of those black flights.
Go ahead. It said Dan 676. I thought maybe someplace we should have the word more. You know, it just gives a number, but it doesn't say,
Not more than?
yeah.
Not more than.
Otherwise, why are we putting in
Oh,
anything?
you're actually right. It does say, I didn't,
Yeah, not.
it says shall not have a total height of, yeah, I missed the word more there. That was, okay.
Okay, so how's that gonna be worded then?
So it would be worded, no WECS or Met tower shall have a total height of more than blank feet. That's how it would work.
All right, some more needs to go over there.
Okay. Next page, page 11.
Okay, so 4 and wildlife, those were changes. Yeah,
Okay, you see, here's this, for whatever reason, so 10 or 11, we're in the wildlife section.
okay.
There was a discussion about, do we really want to reference the Delaware Otsego Audubon Society specifically, or just refer generically to any agency that may have expertise in the area? And I think the consensus was we should refer generically to any agency that has an expertise. So that's what I did there.
Okay.
So the next line there was a question brought up about this, about the incidental take permits. And it's my understanding that that those are only given after the project is, after commencement of construction. Now, I'll clarify that. I mean, the intent here is not to require them, or to let them skate on getting any permit they have to get. It's simply a timing issue and what the law requires. They're required to get it one way or another. It's just a matter of, we don't want to put a standard in there that's literally impossible to meet. DEC will only give it when the timeline is met that they have in their regulations. So, my understanding is that they won't give it until after the commencement of construction. So, the language before saying prior to commencement of construction wouldn't have been achievable. But I can, again, double check that to make sure that I'm not wrong on that. And I don't, I'm not an expert on the DEC requirements, but. Okay? Good on that? Just point out a few things. There's no more changes on this page, but I wanted to point out a few things. So they have to notify. There's no doubt about it that projects like this probably will change hands. It happens in any energy company, any developer. I mean, it's almost guaranteed to happen over the course of this. So they have to notify the town. They have to modify their permit if they're going to change hands. Any substantial modifications. Okay, I'm sorry. So yes, so the town clerk shall be notified, and the ownership change shall be registered with the town. And any signs they have, signage that they're required to have would have to be changed. So I just wanted to point that out.
It's number 2,
Yeah.
page 2.
So again, insurance requirements, we have those in section I on that page. We had doubled it from what it was before. It's $2 million per occurrence, $4 million in the aggregate, $5 million and $10 million respectively for any project that's subject to Article 10. So $5 million in per occurrence, $10 million in the aggregate. Okay. Section 5, again, only one change here, but I'll just repeat kind of some of the key points in the decommissioning section. So, again, they're required to post a letter of credit for 120% of the estimated cost of complete decommissioning and removal. They're not allowed to consider salvage value. Okay? I think I do have that in there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I know it's in here somewhere.
Yes, up towards the top. Under A.
Oh, okay.
Abandonment.
All right. So I heard also some comments about, what if the costs go up over time? They have to come back every 5 years,
right.
re-estimate, and maybe change based on majority vote of the board. So they have to come in and basically do a new estimate. They also have to submit a decommissioning plan, not just the bond, or not just the letter of credit, but actually a plan to show how they're going to do it. And I had added, earlier on, in an earlier draft, we had added some provisions in here that made it clear that, let's say the town had, in the worst case scenario, had to draw on that letter of credit because they defaulted on it. And it's my understanding, I passed out a memo on this, that my understanding is insolvency or bankruptcy would be a default under their letter of credit, and you would immediately have the ability to call that letter of credit and draw upon it. So that, I believe that's covered based on the research we've done. And also the question was brought up about bond versus letter of credit. Again, that memo addresses those pros and cons, and it appears to me to be better for a letter of credit. Because a bond operates much like an insurance policy. You have to make a claim. You have a lot of really strict procedures you have to follow. Then they evaluate the claim, and they're looking to get you out of paying that claim in an insurance policy. Same thing with a bond. With a letter of credit, literally they just tell you exactly what you have to say, and if you say that in your letter, you get the money. It seems that simple to me, or at least it's simpler than a bond. So there's been debate in prior projects over which one's better, and that was in the Casadega project. The siting board basically, kind of evaluated those things, and yes, they said that letter of credit's seems to be more protective of the towns. So, That's why it says letter of credit. It requires them to remove the foundation down at least 4 feet below the ground. In some other projects, it's only 36 inches. But again, based on some other research I've done, 4 feet goes, I mean, 3 feet is not much if you're talking about farmland especially,
Right.
because you're turning up that land. So, yeah, and just to be clear though, that only applies it applies to the foundation. Their interconnection lines are gonna, go all over the place, all underground. And this doesn't, it's been based on my research, they leave those there. They don't pull them out. I mean, they deactivate them. They don't dig them all up.
And they'll be deeper than 4 feet.
I'm not sure about that, how deep those will be. I think it depends on the topography in that case, but I don't know.
Because if you get to putting tile lines in or something, if you put water line in, frost line, you figure 4 foot. So if you're going across something with, you don't want to be hitting one of their lines.
Right. That's a question we have to ask the
Yeah.
engineer.
I can ask Mark that. Mark actually had a really good idea of that. I'm gonna make a note of that so I don't forget.
Yeah, because I think hit a line putting in a drainage tile, and I like to get them down deep enough so they do something.
I mean, it's in their best interest.
Yeah.
To do that. I mean, you're gonna knock out the whole system if they endanger it by putting it too shallow. The change I made in this section towards the end, it said that revegetation of restored soil areas with native seed mixes, excluding any invasive species, and I added, with preference given to the landowner where possible. The thought there being like, if it's a farmer and they used to have corn, it's not necessarily a native seed mix, but it might have been native to that piece of property before. If the landowner wants them to replant corn, then why not let them? So that would be the idea.
Corn, rye,
whatever, just, at least gives them preference, as long as they're not gonna plant something that's an invasive species.
Right.
I also want to address another comment that has come up tonight. So the question of like, so when do they have to decommission? It's not just when they, if they go bankrupt or any time, but what if they just stop using it? What if they turn them off for a certain period of time? That's addressed here. So if they, let me see if I find it, so I get the language exact here. Upon cessation of activity of a fully constructed system for a period of 18 months, the town will notify the owner or operator to implement the decommissioning plan. And then they have 140 days upon notice to restore operation to 50%. And if they don't, then they have to begin decommissioning. So they can't just, say, hey, we're still here, we're still operational, but we're not actually operating the tower. So they're just sitting there not operating for a long enough period of time, then it triggers decommissioning. It triggers a notice period, so it's for the town to say, hey, you got to get these up and running or you're going to decommission. Okay. And the last point I wanted to point out here, just as a protective measure, 2 drafts ago we added a language at the very, very end. One concern we've had, and I'll be honest, it's not entirely clear exactly how this would work, but let's say the town had to go in and decommission these using the money. Well, what about access? You don't have access directly to this private property. So we added a provision to say that whatever access rights they have, whatever easements they have to assign to the town so that you can gain the same level of access that they have. That's the best way I can think of to address that. We don't have access to every single agreement that they have with landowners to determine exactly how they have access, but so I've tried to word it in a way that allows you to gain access in whatever ways they've been allowed access. They have to assign that interest. Okay. Next section's on Met Towers. A lot of these changes are the same that were in the other sections. It's just now applying to Met Towers. So I'll go through this a little quicker.
Can we
yeah, go ahead.
Just back up to the the foundation part and the underground wires, I mean, they're gonna have to have somebody on board to mark these out if somebody wants to do digging and stuff, like, you know, Dig Safely New York, like, that's quite an undertaking too. I think something ought to be put in there that they have to have somebody that will mark those lines out.
Yeah, we can add that, I mean, it's state law that they have to comply with Dig Safe New York, I mean, but we can cross-reference that and say comply with any Dig Safe New York requirements.
Well, they have to have somebody on board that knows where these lines are.
On board?
Well, somebody that, I mean, say somebody wanted to put like a drain tile in on their land, I mean, they'd have to have somebody to come in and mark them out, so.
Okay.
You know, and if it's private, if that's private, that's their own deal. You're responsible for your own private stuff, so.
You want me to look to see if there's anything I can add on that? Okay. The next sections are the Met Tower sections. I made changes to the setback section to conform with the changes I made to the other setback section. Okay. Same thing with the lighting. I just changed it to be consistent with the lighting provisions of the other sections. Okay. That's it for changes to the wind portion of this. Do you want to move on to solar?
I'm just going to throw out there a couple things. You know, I have been sent some documents which I forwarded some onto the board. You know, there's a research article that was done in, I think, 2010 or 11 on methods for defining safe setbacks. Took a little while. It was actually an abstract that was sent to us to read the actual article. I sent that on to Ken and said, I understand all the concepts. I also followed up with the people who developed the study. And they actually have a company today called, if I pronounce this right, Persinia, which takes a look at wind power projects and setbacks and things like ice throw and failure and so forth. They're working, they do work with wind turbine companies and they work with municipalities. I don't know whether it's something we want to take a look into. They are working with the town of Enfield in Tompkins County. I haven't gotten any current information from Enfield. Their last, I think, wind power law was passed around 2009. But this is just briefly, if anybody wants to look at it, you can. I was amazed that within the next day, the gentleman, it was Jonathan Rogers, who was the lead researcher on this, sent me back a study that they had done, which is here. You know, I think this study really just dealt with ice throw and with turbine blade failure. And I'm only going to read the summary. It's about, I don't know, 70, 80 pages long. The worst case analysis was performed to consider ice throw if turbines continued normal operations during ice shield events. A specific site simulation analysis presented in this report shows that ice throw risk to an area is extremely small, with an average receptor expecting an impact of 1 fragment in every 200 years. And they defined the fragments as anywhere from 1.3 pounds to 2.2 pounds. And as a precursor to that, they talk about the fact that technology today is supposed to shut the turbines down. And this turbine project had 190 turbines. They went on to talk about blade fragment risk assessment. The probability of blade fragment is thrown from a turbine during operation is significantly smaller than the probability of ice fragment release, likely by several orders of magnitude. There's little data regarding blade throw distances precisely because they are so rare. But this company actually does studies on the turbines, and would be interested to do this study, I believe, is similar to the turbines that Calpine is going to be using. But as we can follow up with them, you know, they could give us a proposal contract to take a look at setbacks. I'm going to try to see where Enfield is at with this, because I know they were working to rewrite their wind power law. And the whole goal is, once again, to determine safe setbacks. Winfield's original wind power law was 1.1. And I don't know whether they're gonna have a standard like that, or they'll use modeling. So. But I know we have concerns about setbacks, and I'm gonna try to find out what the company, I didn't get just general setbacks from them, and they only sent this one document. And I'll see if I can get the names of any other companies. There was only one town in New York that they've worked with.
Do you want to move on to the second section?
Sure,
of this?
and solar.
Should be a little bit
Quicker.
Again, because these are modeled similarly, some of the changes are similar. So I carried through the new definition of sensitive site through to the solar energy system. It's basically unchanged, okay? It's structured throughout here pretty much the same. On page, for me it's page 19, it might be page 18 for you. I'm under the section of buffer and setback restrictions, section 5.
Oh, okay.
So I carried through that explanation that our setbacks from roads are to the center of the road, okay? Page 22 for me is in the decommissioning section under abandonment. I carried through the same requirement that they should look to the preference of the landowner for replanting when they decommission.
What page?
22?
It's on page 22 of
I
ours.
don't understand what that says.
Section 7 abandonment.
Minimum lot area. Shall be 5 acres or 6 acres for every megawatt.
Going back to 19 real quick here. I'm sorry, which?
What does that mean,
Oh, well, he's going back, so.
Okay, so in
Yeah, I'm
section
right
5A, for me it's page 19, top of page 19, it says, it says, the minimum lot area for a commercial SEPF shall be 5 acres or 6 acres for every megawatt of capacity, whichever is more.
That has greater capacity.
Yeah, the idea there is that you can't build a commercial SEPF if you only have 4 acres. It's, the idea being like that's too cramped. So there's an acreage restriction on that. You have to have at least 5 acres.
At least 5 acres.
Or 6 acres for every megawatt of capacity.
I see.
So if the capacity is greater, you would have to have more acreage.
Got it.
Back to 22.
I think that's it.
We're back on 22, right?
Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
It just said preference to the landowner.
Yeah,
as
so
far
that
as
was,
plant.
that was just preference on the replant.
Oh, it's the same thing there before.
Yep.
Questions that the board has? Any other questions?
Well, I guess excuse me, next steps, how do you want to do next steps here?
We have some questions that we still have to finish. There are some things that we talked about that we are still kind of up in the air.
So I'm going to say we're not ready to take this to public hearing at this
No.
point in time. I think we're going to have another review. I know Terry and I had talked to see whether or not you can send the changes that we can discuss, and I'll probably take the lead on responding to those. If board members have questions, I'll get those to you, and we can communicate that way, and at some point in time, we'll have to have you back in to go through those things.
Yeah, do you want to go to have the next meeting on this be the July meeting, or do you want it as a special meeting?
Well, if we're going to do a special meeting, we're going to have the documents ready
Right.
and
We can-
answers, and until we get the questions in the documents, so this time it was kind of, I'm not faulting you, but it was kind of short notice to get the stuff to the town board members and out to the public. So I would really rather say, let's wait until our July meeting, which should give us another month to put some things together and to do some more research.
Okay.
But could we get some answers back within,
2 weeks.
two
to 3 weeks.
Yeah, so that we can respond with more questions that we would have.
Yes, I will do that.
Even if we almost need to just sit down and review and ask each other questions that we want to ask.
Yeah.
To bring out points.
Well, we may have to schedule a special meeting, a work session for
A
the
work
board.
session, yeah.
Which is open to the public, but there isn't going to be public comment. There's sometimes we have questions and we need to have discussion about where we're going with things.
Mhm. I think that would be the way to do. Yeah.
Okay, so tentatively, we won't see you again until
Okay.
July.
All right.
And there's a couple things I think that we're going to have you get back to us, and if there's other questions, if board members send them to me, I'll get them collated and send them on to Brady. And if we have other questions, we may do direct contact, but we'll get that set up. Okay, moving on. If I can find my report. Did you put my report in there?
Yes, it's in there someplace, I saw it.
It might not be in my call to order. I got it, it's here, you did. Thank you. Okay, report, supervisor's report. I was contacted by Jesse Stowell from Encore, which is on a potential commercial solar project. I said we need to get the mapping portion done yet. They're supposed to get me something as soon as he apologized, it was 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago when he spoke with me last, and we haven't seen that. I'll forward that to the board when I get it. All the paperwork for the Guilford Water project, I believe, has been finally submitted to USDA. Some of it we had to update, like our insurance and things, because the project has dragged on. I believe we will close on the environmental facilities grant from New York State in August, is what the date that we now have. Gilda, I have not heard back from the Department of Labor. And Gail knows I've called them virtually every day. The gentleman's been out of the office. I don't know why. They keep telling me, well, he'll maybe be back in tomorrow. The month of June has been proclaimed Dairy Month in Chenango County. I attended the Boy Scout flag burning ceremony in Mount Upton Park. It was very interesting. We had groups there. Arlene can probably give us more information from Pennsylvania and Syracuse and other areas. Nice attendance. The IRT program, Greater Chenango Cares, which they've had twice before, where the military comes in and provides medical services, is looking for volunteers. I guess they're short about 100 people to do everything to parking lot directions and things like that. For more information, I can get you more information if you need that, where to contact them. The dates that runs is July 11th through 20th. The 11th and 20th are half days, and in between they're pretty much full days. The program will be operated out of Norwich City Schools. Last time they were here, it was about $2.3 million in free medical services that were provided for residents of Chenango County and animals in the county. All of the spade neuter slots have already been filled. There were 400 slots. They were filled within, I guess, hours. I submitted paperwork to the comptroller's office for the vacant justice position. You know, we were not getting billed because we had the second justice who really was not serving. I did the paperwork and sent it in, so hopefully within short order that will get corrected. And that's it for the supervisor's report. Moving down, town clerk, Gail.
George, real quick, I'm happy to stay. Do you want me to stay? I just want to be cognizant of what.
Does the board, do we have anything?
Happy to, if you want me to. I just.
Yeah, I think we're going to want you
Okay.
for executive session.
Okay, all right.
Which might be around
I just
midnight.
wanted to check.
Okay, continuing. Town clerk.
Okay, in your packet is the tax collection report. We finished the year collecting a total of $2,779,714.53. The amount that I sent back to them unpaid was $396,125.56. I turned them back over on Monday, so everything is now back into Shenango County's hands. Thank goodness. On the reverse side of that report, you'll see the comparison to the previous 5 years. We finished, this year we collected 87.55% of the total warrant. Last year we collected 87.18%, so we were just slightly ahead of last year. Penalties collected in May were $4,189, bringing total penalties that the town got to $11,072, which was down from last year. There were more people that paid their taxes in January, so it meant less penalties to the town. Late notice fees was $76. Any questions on anything to do with the taxes? Also in your packets, Penny had prepared an assessor's report. If there's any questions, you can, Sheila, you can give Penny a holler and check with her. Yesterday, ADT, a new sales rep, stopped in and looked through the system. And his first comment when he saw the first thing was, "This wasn't what I expected to see." He's saying that within the next couple of years, we're going to have to replace our security system and upgrade it. He's supposed to pull together the cost and send to me for budgeting. He said it's not like you need to do it this year, but within the next couple of years, you're going to need to upgrade.
Is that because of the computer aspect? Or?
Probably. He didn't really say other than this is not the system that I expected.
No, it's going 10 plus years now.
Right. I had a phone call yesterday from Phil Bedford. He will be in next week to do our doors in the town hall. And he is coordinating with Barnes Electric to do that piece of it. So he is scheduled to come in Tuesday and Wednesday. He said about 4 hours or so, both days.
It'd be nice if we could get that door done before, get the rust off and have it repainted.
I almost would wait till the automatic door is done in case they bang it.
Okay.
So I know the door needs repainting.
Yeah.
We need to find somebody to do it.
Summer help? Summer help do that?
Highway's busier than anything.
She's not a painter.
She isn't? I thought she did some last year.
She did some.
Okay, we'll go there.
And then down at the town hall on our website are the instructions, the details, the provision slips for the summer program, for the Guilford swim program, the Mount Upton swim program, and the arts and crafts program. We're just really busy. Now that taxes are gone, maybe we can start breathing a little easier.
Okay, you're done?
I'm
That's
done.
good.
Yep.
Okay, moving down, financial report, it's in your packets also.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if everybody able to hear things. The town will receive $14,582.50 for mortgage tax monies from October 1st, 18 to March 31st this year. What we had budgeted was $12,500, so we're already over budget. The expenses for the postcard mailing related to the High Bridge project was coded to supervisor contractual. That wasn't budgeted, so we're going to have to go back. There's not going to be enough money to take us through the year for that. Bob, I don't know if you got this, there is recent state legislation looking to restore that winter recovery money.
Yeah, I heard, yeah. we had a meeting
We'll
the
have
other
to
day.
watch where it goes. It's 68 million. We'll probably, if we get it, get another $30,000 or $40,000. I do think this last winter was worse as far as damage to the roads than we previously had experienced. Any questions on the financials? We're tracking fine. In some areas, we're spending a little bit more money than was budgeted. I'll look at Brady for legal. There'll be a couple amendments that we'll take a look at in a minute. What would you like to do with the financials?
Move to accept them as presented.
A motion has been made to accept the financials as presented. Any further discussion?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's going to carry. Okay, you've got in your packets, I think we put the budget, proposed budget amendments in there.
Yep.
We're still in here though. I had made a mistake in how I wrote this in May for the payment for the payloader. So it's corrected here. General fund, increase the budget A 1420.4, which is attorney contractual, by an additional $10,000. That money is going to have to come out of the unassigned fund balance. I don't have money left in contingency. From A 1990.4 contingent, I need to increase the justice, and that should be equipment line. If it's not been corrected, and it should be A 110.2, and I typed that incorrectly, $200. We had to buy a new printer when we got the computers because the old one wasn't compatible, and Bruce had some other supplies that were needed. Under parks, from A 1990.4 contingent again, we need to increase the parks contractual budget by at least $600. We had done the work over at the Mount Upton Park and the plumbing, and we have some other bills we're going to have to pay for electricity and other types of things. The $600 I will hope will take us through the rest of the year. I'm not sure, but we'll find out. And the correction in the highway budget increase, I needed to say rather than transfer, increase the budget DA 5130.2, which is machinery equipment, $146,825 for the loader, and that is from the Highway Equipment Savings Reserve. Any questions on the proposed budget amendments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion then if someone chooses to do so.
I move to accept the budget amendments.
A motion's been made to accept the budget amendments as presented. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion on budget amendments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's going to carry. What we have been doing is billing anything related to the wind energy law to our legal contractual, because we had some consulting fees. We worked with an environmental engineering consultant. The bill is in there for tonight. We're trying to keep those all in one place so the board can keep track of those things. Okay, moving on down the line. Highway Committee, Bob. Or Highway, Bob.
Okay, we cleaned ditches on Ice Settlement, Wahlberg, Gospel Hill, and Glover's Corners. We have graded all the dirt roads. We rebuilt 0.4 of a mile on Hoffman Road, and we cold mix paved 0.43 miles on North Pond Road, and that'll be part of the CHIPS program. Started mowing roadsides. The other mower should be here Friday, and we installed 9 driveway pipes this last month.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
That's all I have.
Committee reports. Highway Committee?
Don't think we've met
No.
in the last month.
Yeah, Tom has been sick, so. Okay, Building Committee?
That'd be me. Okay, this is the June 2019. We met June 7th. I'll start out with the town hall. Justice Windsor had showed us worn carpet. This has been a number of months now. Between the justice bench and the door, we do have leftover carpet. I did have someone come and give us an estimate, looked at the job, and said that it could easily, he could easily replace the worn carpet with the leftover carpet that we have. The problem that we are facing is because of the New York Labor Department regulations, we have to go through paperwork and get approval, get a number, and prevailing wage form in order to be able to have an installer do the job. So that's what we're waiting on. This is ridiculous.
I put the application in, we've got the number, but we need their approval.
Yeah.
I was told it would take 24 to 48 hours. The application was submitted and returned successfully May 9th. So we're over a month, and I've got over a dozen phone calls in. And it's probably $100 or $200 repair.
Yeah.
But to be in compliance with Department of Labor regulations, that's what we have to do.
It's ridiculous. Okay, the highway door issues, you still having problems with the bay door?
No, it's been pretty good lately.
It's
No,
been
it
good.
hasn't.
Didn't
It's
today?
acting
Didn't
up
work
still?
today when I tried using them, and the guys, the one over there didn't work, and this one did the same thing. It stops and goes and stops and goes.
Oh.
So we're going to have to look to get somebody in to work on the doors.
Okay. I got it right there. Okay, the bottom step of the stairs, George replaced the 3-step stringers between the upper and lower parking lot because we noticed it was loose. So thank you for doing that, George. Safer now.
So get it built. I'm only kidding. It took 2.5 hours. I had to tear everything apart, crawl under the steps.
Oh, goodness. Tree planting, the Veterans Park in Mount Upton had a new Norway spruce planted by Bob, which came from Mike Gray's tree farm called Perfect Circle Forestry. It was planted on May 9th. I did notice that it isn't straight, however, and so Bob, if you get a chance, you could put a cord or something and pull it over so it'll straighten it. Yeah. It looks nice otherwise.
Did you get a bill from him yet for that?
No.
Okay, I'm sure we will. Front door, finally we're going to get the installation of the automatic door opening next week. We do need to get the door itself sanded and primed and then repainted because there is rust. We'll have to figure out who's doing that and when that's going to be done. Everlocks will be doing that. Mount Upton Park Committee, I met May 20th. I do have a separate report that we can do under that part of the agenda. One of the things that Ken and I had questioned, Bob, we had talked last year when we did our shale pit inspection on Gospel Hill there about the, and also maybe even back at the highway building, about metal scrap. And there's quite a bit of it up there.
We've been procrastinating, we're hoping the price goes up, but it doesn't seem to.
It doesn't, okay. Well, we just
When we get
bring that
down
to
and
your
out, we'll
attention.
have to sell it, I guess. There's a lot there, though.
Yeah, there is, especially up there. I think there's some in back of the highway
Doesn't
building too.
it diminish with rust?
I don't know.
So, I mean,
Some of it
may
can't
be
get much
nothing
rustier.
left by the time we decide to sell it.
Okay. That's all I have for Building and Grounds Committee.
Okay, moving down, Planning Committee did not have anything. We didn't have any subdivisions or anything else come in for the Planning Committee. Park Committee,
Okay, that's my next report. The Park Committee met May 20th. Under old business, they said the bathroom repairs have been done. The spigot was installed on the bathroom building. The new park bench that used new wood and some of the old wood that was still good has been done. They're working on a serving table. The stone bench needs repair on the under supports, and that has been removed by Barnes to be fixed. The shed door needs alignment, and the 2 signs for Hunt's donation, the park benches are available to be put on. Under new business, the park opened on May 1st. They would like to have the open date moved next year because it is too cool earlier. So they'd like to have it open on May 1st rather than an earlier time of the 15th of April. They did find the septic location under the driveway road west of the bathroom building. They would like to have the old spigot removed because they're hearing a gurgling of water underneath there. The fence has been repaired, the flagpole has been fixed. Bob and the crew put stone in the driveway circle and on the road along the edge of the park, and they're thankful for that. The stone bench was removed by Barnes to repair the underside support that they believed had been hit by a lawnmower, perhaps. They need to level the shed and the door. The signs in the benches in the building are ready to put on the benches. The barbecue is going to be made smaller. Manny is planning to take the unneeded blocks out of there. If anybody wants some old blocks, they're welcome to have them.
They'll have to get declared surplus.
Is that what they have to do?
They have to
Okay,
be
I'll
declared
tell him that.
surplus.
Okay. They need more park members. There's a couple people that have expressed interest, but they really need some, especially some that live close to the Mount Upton Park. The park bench that had been destroyed has been repaired with new wood added. No one is using the Little League field at this point. They do need power to the outlets. They do need new outlets. That's one of the things that they would like. And if we can
When
get
Barnes
that done.
Electric is here, I told Manny I'll see him. He's going to be here next week.
Okay, yeah, have him show you where he'd like those. They had a big car show back on May 18th. Manny said there were 78 cars reported. I don't know. There are
It was
over
good.
50.
It was nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of them. It was a beautiful day. The promoters would like to do another in the fall. That was Fane and Mel George. They did a wonderful job. If they can work out a date, hopefully that'll work out, because that was really well attended. The serving table is waiting to be finished. They were out of paper towels and toilet paper for the bathrooms.
When was that?
That was May 20th, so.
It was,
Has that been taken care of?
well, it was used just last weekend.
Okay, so you need more.
Well, I just put in one.
Okay, because I said we'd have more over here. I'll take more, can take more over.
Okay. And the new strap for the baby swing. I know Manny said he was working on that,
Yep.
but he had to order it or something, I guess. And a new pressure valve was put in. Okay. They would like to know what to do with the old bleachers by the ballpark. They're in bad shape. Should they have Bob haul them away? People don't use them. If there's an event there, they bring their own chairs, even if there's a tractor pull. They're concerned about it being a liability, having them there. Tired Iron is scheduled to hold a larger tractor pull and asked to use the old scales. Manny said he feels that the scales are not in good shape. He said it's been quite a while since they've been used and they look in rough shape. He was concerned about that. They would like us to approach Zazax about donating property to give to the park on the northern end. Power boxes, at least a couple of GFI boxes are needed to be installed in the pavilion on the northern side, maybe one every other pole, and put them on a different breaker. They're still working on a sign, checking into names of those who are responsible for helping start the park. July 27th is Community Day held in the park. If they have the sign finished by then, they will do a dedication of the sign on that day. The next Mount Upton Park meeting will be June 17th at 7 p.m.
Okay, a couple other things. Upstate or Zazax have been approached about donating. I'll go back and see them. I spoke with them last year about that.
Okay.
They seem amiable to the idea.
They're even willing to do some swap with land too.
Okay.
Yeah. This goes to.
But
this is
if we
inspection.
do anything, we'll have to have it surveyed.
Yeah, that goes to Gail. Thank you. Inspections.
Okay, thank you, Gilda. Moving down.
Yep.
Old business, comprehensive plan. What does the board want to do with the proposed update?
George, back when we first went through this, I said I had problems with page 9. I had some other issues too, but I could overlook some of them. But I have problems with page 9.
Are we to discussion?
And we had a discussion about this. And that had to do with, especially with the policy addressing solar access. It had to do with considering solar orientation of future buildings, streets, and lots that may be approved in the town via subdivision. I know that we had a discussion about this, and you said, well, this isn't going to be taking effect now, and you don't want to encumber future town boards. But my concern is, why is this even in here? Why does this even need to be in this plan? I think it is going to cause a hardship perhaps on property owners if they want to put a home or something else on their lot and it doesn't go in the right orientation, they may be told they can't do it. Or they have to put a road or a driveway in a different direction that would be reasonable. So I can't support this with this here. And I told you that before, and I still feel the same way.
Terry, you answered that before.
Should we just have a motion to delete it?
We can, but you answered her question before on that. And this really was taken from the state energy policy regarding solar development. We would have to actually pass a local law to do that. This is a recommendation in the plan. It's not something that is required at this point in time.
No,
We
this
don't
was put in there
have,
by Nan Solzenberg. It doesn't need to be in there.
but we don't have site planning. In order to have something like this become a requirement, we would have to go through the process of establishing site planning, which would require enactment of a local law and a plan.
It doesn't need to be in there.
Well, I
It
think it
does
has a
not.
positive effect by being in there because
No.
it may encourage people and remind them that this is a desirable thing to do. On the other hand, I agree with Gil that one should not be forced unless we
No,
actually
it may,
pass the
it
law.
may
but
totally destroy their property if
Well,
they
no, it's
can't put their
only-
house in a certain direction because of the way the sun is
We're
shining.
not forbidding them to do it, but we're recommending to them that be aware that it might be a good idea to orient your house that way.
Well, it wants
if
to
you're
develop a
building.
policy
Is
to
that-
do that, and you know down the road that's gonna happen.
Oh, I
If it's
don't
in
know.
there.
I don't know, we
That would
had
happen.
site planning in our 2014 comp plan as something the town board should work on, and there's been objections to doing that on the part of the board, and we haven't done that. You know, we went through a checklist. Terry said, let's take a look at what the plan said. He was new to the board, and we said, we've done a lot of things that were goals for the town board, and other things we haven't done. You know, I don't have a problem with taking this out. It doesn't make a big difference. Tentatively, we should start taking a look at the whole plan again next year. You know, we said there was a 5-year review. We can take a look at site planning and other types of things, you know, which there was some reason for doing that. I don't know, Terry, if you want to make a motion to delete section 3 and renumber, I have no problem with that.
Would it change, could we adopt it that way tonight if we did that?
We have to have
Or would we have
another
to
public hearing
go
on
back and,
I don't think so.
There's a change in comprehensive plan, and we had a public hearing on it already tonight, so would we have to have another one?
Well, you went to the 239 review, right?
Yeah, we went to 239 review already.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a new public hearing, but the question, the standard I'm usually familiar with is if there's a change that I would consider substantial, then you'd have to resubmit it to the county for 239 review to do that. Now, on the spot, to decide whether this is substantial enough of a removal to
I can take it
warrant
to the
that,
county.
you know, you'd have to, yeah, obviously this would push us out again.
Sure.
You know.
Okay,
so
and we can
that
check.
would be what happens then if we did that?
I mean, the safest course of action certainly would be to redo it all. But, you know, I'm reluctant to say that you would have to do that because you're just removing this, which is already what arguably is a non-binding thing. It's not forcing it, but it's forcing you to consider it in the future. So, again, the safest, like I said, the conservative way to do this would be to, if you're going to delete it, to reintroduce it, to do the process. Not necessarily 2 public hearings again, but the last one.
Right. We'd have to have another public hearing. Sure, and take it back to, we can do that.
If you want to make that change.
If you want to make that recommendation.
I don't know if I want to go through all that. Hilda?
Well, and once again, I don't think.
If you vote for it today, I vote no. So-
Well, why don't we have a vote and then see?
Yeah,
what
I'd
happens.
entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the comprehensive plan as we. Update as we have it in hand.
We have to use this from.
Yeah, we'll have a resolution. Guess I better read all of this. This is the official resolution. Adoption of the comprehensive plan. Whereas the comprehensive plan statutorily recognized instrument under town law 272A for intermediate and long-range protection, enhancement, growth, and development of the town. Whereas a properly crafted comprehensive plan assists in the protection of health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the town. Whereas the town board has identified the need to update its long-range plan to guide growth and development in the town. Whereas the town board has carefully considered the current needs of the community. Whereas the town board developed that the issue of concern to the town be to address updates related to renewable energy development in the town. Whereas the town comprehensive plan adopted in 2014 established a vision for the town that included support of renewable energy and that further discussed renewable energy use and conditions felt to be adequate at that time. Whereas the town board has determined that in the intervening years there has been more interest in demand for implementation of renewable energy projects in the town. Whereas the town board concluded that the 2014 plan did not offer enough detail to guide future decisions making in the town related to renewable energy use development. Whereas the updated draft reaffirms the town's desire to promote renewable energy in a manner that preserves the essential character and environment in the town as described in the 2014 plan. Whereas the drafted updated reaffirms the town's support for renewable energy as well as protection of the environment and offers new and more specific recommendations on methods the town board can implement to promote renewable energy in a manner that preserves the essential character and environment in the town. Whereas the town reviewed the draft plan and held a properly noticed public hearing pursuant to Town Law 272A. Whereas the adoption of the comprehensive plan pursuant to Town Law 7-722 has been determined to be a type 1 action pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act seeker. Whereas the proposed action does not require permits or approval from any other local, regional, or state agencies prior to the adoption. Whereas the Chenango County Planning Board is required to review the town comprehensive plan pursuant to the standards of New York State Municipal Law 239M, and their approval is considered an advisory opinion under seeker, and the agency is not considered to be eligible for the lead agency status action. Whereas the town has submitted the draft plan to the Chenango County Planning Board. Whereas the town has received approval from the Chenango County Planning Board. Whereas the town has declared the town of Guilford comprehensive plan described herein will not have any adverse environmental impacts. Whereas the town board has filed a negative declaration and environmental notice bulletin according to seeker New York State 6 NYCRR Part 617. Now be it therefore resolved as follows by the town board, town of Guilford, Chenango County, that the town board, town of Guilford hereby determines the updated comprehensive plan dated blank 2019 attached hereto and made part of the hereby adopted plan to be included in the updated 2014 comprehensive plan, and that the town board shall file a copy of the updated town of Guilford plan with the town clerk and the Chenango County Planning Department as required by 272A, and that the town board shall cause a full copy of the adopted 2014 plan, including all associated documents and maps included in appendices, that the 2019 update be placed and maintained and accessible on the town website. The motion made to adopt, made by
Kenneth Fogarty.
seconded by,
Harry Ives.
okay, and we're going to do a roll call vote. Ken?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
No.
Councilmember Ives?
Yes.
And Supervisor Senek, yes. That vote will carry. I don't think we have any further discussion unless the board has it under renewable energy law. Old business, or I should say, new business. At this point in time, we had thought tentatively we might schedule a special board meeting. I don't see that that is going to be part of the plan at this point in time. We have a fireworks request from the North Pond Landowners Association. Is it in packets or you're going to read it?
I'll read it. Dear board members, once again this year, the North Pond Westside Landowners Association requests permission to have a fireworks display on North Pond for its traditional 4th of July celebration. The date selected for our celebration is July 4th, 2019, with a potential rain date scheduled July 5th, depending upon weather conditions. If permission is granted, we will secure the necessary insurance and file a copy of the paperwork with the town clerk. As always, the display will be conducted in observation of all observance of all New York State rules and regulations. Thank you for your consideration of our request. Sincerely, Barbara Knowles.
The board is so inclined and entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's made and second. Further discussion on the fireworks request? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's going to carry. 284 agreement, Bob, it's my understanding you still don't have pricing from,
Right, I got it from one company and.
okay. What I'm going to do is entertain a motion to table the 284 agreement, highway agreement,
So moved.
until next month. Motion's made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Bob, as soon as you get that, if you can get that to me, I'll scan it and send it out to the board so they can start looking at that. Because I know we've already started work. Summer employees.
Okay, I have a list of the summer lifeguarding program
And arts and crafts.
and arts and crafts. Carol has given me Victor Fisher at $13 an hour, Nicole Grabo at $13 an hour, Chloe Hubbard at $13 an hour, Jeremiah Hubbard at $12.75 an hour, Daniel Norris at $13 an hour, Suzanne Robinson at $13 an hour plus $1,300 salary, Carol Sia, $14.50 an hour, she's the bus driver, and Thomas Petratoni at $13 an hour.
I need a motion to hire, if anyone's so inclined.
So moved.
Motion to hire the lifeguards and set the salary as the town clerk noted. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's going to carry. We did up the salary a little bit this year to try to make sure we get people. And some of the rates of pay are higher because they're returning. And when they come back the second year, they get a whopping 25 cents an hour more. So I think we found with other things that simply hiring people at minimum wage is getting tougher to do. Okay, moving on. I have some information. Mike Gray did get out and finish the timber assessment. He left a report with me. Was that in packets?
I believe I did.
Okay. If you want to take a look at that, it actually involves a little bit more money than was initially thought. Part of it for property here, cutting our ash off of it, there are 148 trees. It's at approximately 1,842 feet of board feet. There are 5 soft maple, there are 5 hard maple, 2 basswood, 3 cherry, and some red oak. Some of the trees are being cut for better forestry purposes. Mike said generally the way, you wanted to have a forester mark our trees. He said he either works on a percentage or a daily rate. He said if it's a percentage, usually it's when the timber goes out to bid. And he doesn't know if there's enough timber there for it to go out to bid. It would be my recommendation, unless the board is inclined otherwise, to pay his daily rate of $300 and he had a day and a half, so it would be $450.
So moved.
Okay, motion's been made to reimburse or pay Mike Gray for forestry services, $450. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions on this or further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's going to carry. Gail, you have the original.
George, will we be requesting some bids for this?
Yes, we'll talk, and we have a contract that I'll talk about in executive session. Okay, I'll follow up in executive session.
So we've got more than one person interested?
Yes. Back to from the floor. Once again, anyone from the floor, public comment? Yes.
I do have a couple of questions. I don't know if you want to answer or not. I heard you talking about, you changed it from the Delaware Audubon Society to something, you changed the wording tonight. You took the Delaware Audubon Society that was specifically in there to do a bird study or be, and you replaced it with a generic name. you said that someone had recommended that that happen. I would like to know who it was that recommended that that specific thing happen.
That comment came up at the last board meeting. I don't remember who commented on it, but I can tell you the exact change. So it says, all potential impacts to local wildlife, especially threatened / endangered species resulting from the design and siting of all WECS must be reviewed by all relevant state and federal regulatory agencies with consideration of input from local governmental agencies and nonprofit organizations with relevant expertise. And it used to say such as Delaware Otsego Audubon Society. So that was the change.
Right. Do you guys remember why that it was recommended?
Yes. I believe, and I hope that I'm correct in what I'm saying, is what happens if that organization is no longer functional. And you know, it's written into a law that that's who we're going to take comments from.
Okay.
We're not trying to say we won't take comments from them, but what happens if they no longer exist?
All right. Yeah, my question was about, does that mean that we're specifically trying to avoid them?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's specifically that if something happens and another organization or party will replace their expertise, we'll also take comments from them.
Thank you. I have a couple more comments. The decommissioning plan that I understood that you talked about tonight did not cover the removal of the cement and the rebar in the land. Is that correct?
It took it down to 4 foot. It has to be removed at least 4 foot below ground level.
It does?
Yes.
Okay. So then so 4 feet below, they'll take the top 4 feet off, and then under there, we're leaving a ball of cement.
You're leaving bedrock. It would be, you know, there'd be 4 foot of soil cover above that concrete.
But bedrock is not concrete. So are we taking the concrete out, or are we leaving it in?
Leaving it in.
We're leaving it in.
We're leaving the concrete in. Does anybody done any studies or know anything about what happens when we leave that concrete in the ground? We have this, if the wind company abandons the property and is no longer maintaining that property, if we leave this cement in the ground, there's the potential for not only the rusting, but the water run to completely change after no one is repairing that situation anymore. I think that, I don't know what the substance is around that 4 feet, but I was curious as to where we got the removal of the top 4 feet and leaving the rest, because I hadn't heard of that either, and I do know.
We worked with an environmental engineer. We had a 4-hour consulting session on that. We can go back to him, and that was...
Well, I think, and if you actually look further down in this, they have to remove everything 4 feet down, period. But then it also says that all WECS equipment or materials or accessory facilities installed underground must be fully removed in a land reclaimed where such equipment or materials will interfere with or prevent continued compliance by the landowner with environmental laws, which is, there's a definition for that, will give rise to any liability to the town or landowner under any environmental laws, or form the basis for any claim, action, suit, proceeding, or hearing, or investigation under any environmental laws. So they have to remove it 4 feet down, period. But, so anything below that they can keep, provided it's not going to hit any one of those 3. So if it's going to cause any environmental concerns, they would have to remove it beyond that. So they could only leave the cement beyond 4 feet, only so far as it wouldn't raise one of those environmental law concerns. That's actually how this is drafted. So theoretically, they'd have to show that, okay, if we're going to leave something under 4 feet, it's not going to leach into the soil, cause some environmental law breach.
So 40 feet deep foundations, how can't that interfere with the permeation of the rainfall, permeating the soil? I mean, it's impossible.
It's not impossible. They would do pre and
It's
post.
not impossible, huh?
To do
These
soil
foundations for these things?
Soil testing is done all the time with construction of buildings, with foundations. I mean, that would be what they'd be required to do. So they'd have to provide soil testing to show that they're not going to, or provide the material, a list of whatever they're using, so that they can prove that it's not going to cause environmental hazards. I mean, that would be the standard that's set. I mean, I think at the time, during decommissioning, the town would, whoever's sitting at here 30 years from now, would have to hire some sort of environmental person, engineer, to evaluate the decommissioning at that point. There's no question about it.
It's fully understood that it is going to be with the rain permeating soil in these tremendous areas. I mean, it's impossible to do the construction without that happening.
If the board wants to look at this further, that's fine. I mean,
I think we're going to have to get some information. I think the first thing is to talk with our environmental consultant on that, to see what his feedback is on that, how it may impact, what impact it may have. Do you want to reach out and do that, or do you want to?
I can do that,
okay,
yeah.
all right. Otherwise, I'll make the contact. Anything else from the floor?
I don't mind being in a witness. So from what I heard you guys discussing, when you were talking about the height caps and when you were talking about the setbacks, I heard you talking, the lawyer gentleman, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, I heard you talking about the acceptable guidelines and standards. These are the minimum acceptable guidelines and standards that are set by the state, and those are the ones that the town board is choosing to use. The absolute minimum standards. I also heard you talking about, when you were talking about height cap, although a cap seems like a silly word for what we are talking about here in our law, I heard you talking about what was economically feasible for the company. So, and in the decommissioning plan, what was economically feasible. We want you to think about what's economically feasible for the town as well. We want you to think about the property value agreement that almost everyone who has come to this meeting has asked you to do. If you believe that it's not going to affect us, then there shouldn't be any problem in giving us that protection. We don't want the minimum guidelines, and we don't want you to look out for their economic feasibility. We need you to look out for ours also. I want to thank you for answering the couple of questions. They were really helpful to me. Without having the answers to those questions, it's easy for us to make assumptions. I didn't know you had a 4-hour meeting with an engineer. Nobody else did either. Until we can have the kind of answer and questions back and forth with each other, we're not going to settle the angry mob that came here tonight. And I really want to ask you again to please plan a meeting where we can ask you questions and you can answer. Thank you.
Anything else on the floor?
Let me butt in for a minute. To the
Gary,
attorney.
you had your one, I'm sorry.
No, this is just an administrative thing. On page 6, Q.
Of the law?
Yeah. Is that still 4I? Does it still say 4I on yours? Page 6, line Q. Does yours still say 4I?
4-1 or 4I.
I think it should say 5I. I think 5I is the provision, John.
I follow you.
I think it's just a typo, but I wouldn't want that typo to end up in law.
You are exactly right. That should be 5I. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Q should, because it's cross-referencing section on insurance, and it should be section 5I.
Anyone else who has not spoken? Yes. Gary, I'm sorry, we're doing one. You got another gentleman who wants to go down the line there. Certainly. Are we still accepting written comments on the law? Yes. No, on the draft energy, yes. No.
Question. I noticed that when we're talking about the setbacks from the turbines, we're talking about from the center, correct? At that end of the spectrum. That's fine if the turbine is facing you or is facing away from you. But what about when the turbine is to the side of you? The turbine blades are over 200 feet long for turbines this size. Okay, and I confirmed that with Alex, by the way. So if you're now saying that the area of the turbine is no longer at the center, but is now 200 feet closer to the other the other side of that setback. So is there any adjustment or any other factor that you're using to compensate for the distance of the blade when it's sideways to the, to the target of the setback?
I think that have to be included.
You're reducing the setback by 200 feet roughly by doing
Well,
that.
the height of the tower itself, which measures the setback, is based on the 200-foot blade that goes above it. So, again, this is up to you guys however you want to word it. I'm just saying, I think the intent is that the blade is considered as part of the,
Yes,
it's
yes.
considered once. If you were to look at it again, you're considering the blade twice, right?
No, it's a two different positions, so you're using it for the height measure. But the question
Oh, I see.
here
Oh, I
is
see.
if the blade is pointing towards your
I
house,
see what you're saying.
it's 200 feet from.
I see what you're saying.
We may
It's
have
up
to
to the
talk.
board, I guess, if you want to measure it from the
That's a
city.
significant reduction in the setback when
We
you
may have to
consider
look
that that's
at
the
it.
tip of
I'm gonna
the...
refer that to the environmental engineering consultant. Hopefully he can give us some insight on that. I understand what you're saying. I don't know how that would be interpreted. But as I said, we are working with an environmental engineering consultant who takes a look at those engineering pieces of it. So once again, I think we can talk to Mark and see if he can give us some feedback.
To 1,100 feet. At 2 times. And that would apply to all the setbacks.
So you're suggesting we shouldn't do it from the center. There should be any
At least-
portion of the turbine.
At least take into account the 200 feet that it could be pointing towards the setback.
I guess you would say the closest point of the turbine to the boundary line. Huh?
Yes.
And from sideways, it would be the blade line.
Yeah.
The blade is extended out in either direction. Okay.
Again, Calpine did say 1,500 feet plus the turbine height. It wasn't recorded. They'll probably never admit to it. And of course, they're not going to say we want stricter or further setbacks. Of course, they won't do it. I wish we would rely more on the people than what Calpine wants.
But they did have literature at that open house, and perhaps that literature has that
I hope
comment
that it
in
is,
it.
Ken, I really do, but
So
I
we
wouldn't be
would ask
surprised
them
if it's
to
no.
give us
I know
the
I had
literature.
a lengthy discussion with the young lady that was at one of the stations, and she very clearly explained it to me.
Yeah, well, that's hearsay.
Right, and I'm sure that's not by accident.
Okay, so can I just, that question was, you're going to look up and find out. I'm going to
I see what
suggest,
you're saying,
yeah, what about the, looking at the wording in other contracts to see how they, I haven't looked at it, I'll be honest with you. I have not compared to see that because this is the first time I've noticed that. So, it was just a suggestion.
I've probably looked at 20, 30.
I know you've looked at a lot.
Lots of different
And so,
wind laws and so have you, and, yeah.
The other question I wanted to ask is, since there's a lot of frustration on both sides of this aisle tonight, it's obvious. People, what I heard from going on behind me was that people want to hear answers and have a dialogue, not just a one-way conversation. And I think that a lot of us feel that I feel that me and the rest of this group have bent over backwards and spent tireless hours presenting a point to you on different setbacks and stuff like this. And you sit there during these meetings and nod your head, but nothing ever comes of it. So we feel that everything that we've been trying to do to create this information sharing back and forth is being ignored. Now, whether that's the case or not, that's the feeling, that's the perception. So I'm going to get right to the point now. Would the board consider having a meeting with us, with the representatives of our group, to sit down and literally review the requirements that are in this thing compared to what we have suggested, and have a meaningful dialogue back and forth about which may be better and why? That's my question. Would you be willing to have that kind of a meeting with us?
Well, I think there's a couple points that you made. One, that we're just nodding, and I would disagree with that. You know, we've had suggestions come in that I have definitely followed up. I have tried to return every email that I get. Rafe, I took your suggestion about, and I think I took it to the next step about calculating, say, you know, contacted the guy, got the information, followed through on that information. We took the suggestion to take a look at the World Health Guidelines. Not only did I look at the guidelines, I read the entire survey that was done and why they included and didn't include information in it. A point that you made that I would consider, and I'll throw it at the board, is meeting with a group of representatives. We have 5 people on the board. I think it would be a fair assessment to maybe meet with 5 people from a group. But once again, it's a public meeting now.
Then we have to have everybody.
And we have to have everybody here, and I don't know how that would go.
We would welcome it.
You know, I'm going to be honest, we've read comments which, you know, I'm going to throw a couple things out there. You know, I've done a lot of research, and as I've been doing research, you run across things. And I don't know who sent this to me, but I got it. The basic steps for winning the wind war, the basic steps for winning the onshore local wind war. And these are all the steps that your group is using. These came from a website that has the same document. I don't think I have that in mind. Do you have the document on the true costs of, yeah, very similar to what Rebecca sent us. And when you read the documents, this is what we got. And initially when we got it, the references didn't line up with the categories. I don't know why, but apparently maybe somebody made a mistake. And this is based on any town USA and any town wind project. And we're presented this as the cost of this to the community. And it was done in a template that was Microsoft.
Can I just, I can explain?
Okay, I'll let you explain. But what we got was just about like this.
That template came from the document that I created. It was actually, I did mine, and it was considered a legitimate, viable document.
Okay.
And it was asked if it could be used as a generic for other towns that are facing the same thing. So mine did not come from that. That came from mine.
But why were the first one we got from you had mistakes in it? Because the references didn't line up with the categories. The URLs you couldn't find. You had to look for different sites. You know, I spent 5.5 hours going through all the documentation on this to try to verify and read the things that were referenced in here. Couldn't find them. And I'm fairly good at doing research. You know, so there is frustration on both people's parts. I understand that. There is, I think, frustration on my part and perhaps on the rest of the town board.
For your 5 hours, we put 50 hours into that research, and you've made adjustments to the wind law.
You put a lot more.
Okay, well, I'm just saying collectively, we have hundreds of hours.
Absolutely.
And are we perfect? No, but we're working. We're
Sure.
citizens. We're working to find this information, and we're working very hard while raising our families and working our jobs. We made adjustments to it, and we listened to you.
Okay.
We opened that dialogue. We would love for it. You've made changes to the wind law as you've learned things and taken things into consideration. We do the same thing with things that we present, and we're working very hard to present accurate information. If you give us feedback, we take it and we'll try to work on it with you.
Okay.
We're not trying to be inaccurate. That's why we really would like a sit down to talk to you.
But
We need a dialogue. We need a dialogue. Things like that you assume came off the website
Sure.
could have been cleared up in 1 second,
Well,
which it just was.
I did respond, and then you sent me something back.
Why not open the dialogue up to the people, though? Why not? Let us talk.
No.
That's all we're asking for. Why is that unreasonable? We want to talk with you.
Okay, I may refer you to our town law manual and recommendations.
Thank you, Judge.
No, seriously. There are guidelines that are in here. There's things that they tell you that town boards should and should not do. And reasons why you should and should not do those certain types of things. You know, I'm not making this stuff up.
So, I mean, are you basically saying that because they suggest that you don't talk to us, is that?
No, I'm not saying that. Board is going to have to, we'll have to have a discussion on it, and we can get back to you.
Is there anything in there against having a town hall meeting? Why do these seem so unreasonable?
I'm not saying, I don't think it seems unreasonable. We'll have to discuss it. It's not my decision. The board can take a look at it.
When there are many projects with setbacks and things that are way over here, and you're at the very, very minimum.
Let me make a closing comment. so we can all go home.
We can't go home yet.
Or no, the rest of you've got an executive committee that we can't attend anyway.
Sure.
So, I think this law is the most significant law that this town will pass in the last 25 years and in the next 25 years, because it will allow a certain kind of industrial development that's never occurred before in this town to occur. And you're setting the standards for that. And those standards have to be very, very well considered. I mean, that's why you're here. And we applaud all the hard work you're doing. We really do. We know you're working hard, but they are too. I've done some other work in some other communities. For instance, down in the Broome County, eastern Broome County, Sanford, Windsor, that project, the facility isn't just one of them. The facility is the entire 33 or 30 or 27 down there. It's 5,000 acres. 5,000 acres. That's what the Article 10 proceeding is down there. This is 33. This would be at least 5,000 acres. If you had an industrial project that came in here and wanted to use 5,000 acres, you'd absolutely panic. Sure. And this is treated, because it's presented incrementally, but treated completely. I mean, we think about one turbine at a time, but we can't. We need to think of 33 turbines covering 5,000 acres of this town in a basically contiguous area. This is a monster project, and your solar is the same. In Chemung County, where I'm from, they don't have solar statutes, and it's a mess. They're taking farmland, they're cutting trees down, all for carbon neutral, but they're taking prime farmland and cutting trees because they happen to be on top of hills. So what you're doing is a great idea. This is really laudable, and you should do it. But I think what we're all saying is it's a much bigger thing than all of us have recognized until the last month, basically. This is a colossal change in culture, in economics, in finance, and in the daily life of this community. And we just want you to go a little slower and with a little more input than it's been going, because they are now learning. They are, if you will, they're woke. The community is awakened. You're awakened. I can see from all the hard studyings and how you're working on this. And this is an area that's got a lot of new research going on.
Oh, sure.
I mean, and I'm sure you've seen that. Just trying to get a hold of a study, and then you find out there's one in 2018 that just kind of made another study that you thought you could rely on questionable. And there is a lot of experience in Europe and in California which went bad. And I think some of the things that really upset people is the loss of community value, the loss of the value of their own assets, things like it's okay to kill eagles, it's okay to kill bats, it's okay to kill birds. This energy, your law says it's to decrease the cost of energy in the area, but none of this energy is coming here. All this energy is leaving. So this is basically a project that's for a developer out of the area, except for the few leases, all the money is leaving, and then there's the tax money. But we're carrying all the detriment and all the burdens. So the law ought to reflect, okay, guys, if you're going to take all this profit from the area and ship all this energy out, and remember, it's your energy. That wind crossing this town belongs to this town and the town's people. And it shouldn't be valued lightly. And they're going to get the value of that and take it someplace else, take the money that they get from that and take it someplace else. When you have a plant, you have workers, you have people who live here, you have jobs, you manufacture something, money comes into the community for that. Here, the only money coming in is the royalties. That's it. And the taxes. And of course, what happens if the taxes go, if they go bankrupt, if they fail to pay their taxes. So those issues are so great that it worries this group. This group is not really against you. They just want to make sure that they feel that you're really considering this as deeply and as importantly as it is. And it is culture. I mean, I'm old enough to know this entire thing is different from when I was growing up. I mean, to have solar panels, to have solar industrial panels, to have 675-foot windmill, it's just extraordinary. It's like out of the War of the Worlds or something. So I think there's an adjustment that needs to be made. I think they're asking you to do that. And from my point of view and talking with them, they want to work with you. They really do. But they think that it requires a tighter view of looking at Calpine and developers than we're giving them. They're not here for us. They're here for them. So if we let them in, if we embrace them, there better be something positive, really positive in this community that comes from it. If it's just helping New York City because they're developing and they don't have any of their renewables down there, we have to have it upstate, that doesn't seem like a good idea. If there's a positive, big, strong cultural, financial benefit to this community, we should do it. If there isn't, we should look very skeptical at it and make sure, if they are here, that there is a positive benefit and the detriments are fully borne by them and the risks are not shifted to the town and the town folks. That's really all we're here for. Thanks, by the way.
I just
You
want
went
to
over
make
your
a
5
comment.
minutes.
I represent 1, 2.
I just want to make a comment. When you're saying that this is being sent out away, this is going into the grid. This is not just going, there's been a misconception on this. Somehow they're going to have a line going to New York City. It's going into the grid. I just want to make sure people
all power goes
understand
into the
that.
grid.
Because, right. because
More than
a lot
60% of the
people
power
don't
in the
understand
grid goes
that.
to New York City.
Excuse me,
The
I'm-
remaining
Can I speak, please? There's been a big misconception about this for a long time, that somehow there's going to be a separate line that's going to run this electricity all the way to New York City, and that would be ridiculous. I had a number of people say this.
Is not decreasing the cost of power locally. In fact, all of this costs more because it's all subsidized. So the point is, this power is not being made for this community. This community has more than power than it needs. There's twice as much power as it needs. So it's not benefiting the community. That power is not coming here.
It goes into the grid.
Okay, I'm going to move us along. Harry?
Hey, 3 quick things. My aunt hit the 3-letter crucial word that is missing, page 9, item 10. It shall be substitute to more than 30 hours. You forgot the word not.
Oh, yeah, you did. It was in the last one.
My aunt did that.
No,
My aunt.
So shall be subjected to, oh, you're right.
My aunt?
Okay.
Okay,
Number 2,
certainly
Harry.
intends to say there shall be more than 30 hours of flicker, just so everyone's aware. That is a good catch.
Okay.
Number 2 was,
Wait, hang on. Let me just make sure this is right here. No, wait a minute. No, I think it's right. No non-participant resident, school, business, or other occupied building shall be subjected to more than 30 hours of shadow flicker annually. No, that's correct. No non-participant shall be subjected to it 30 hours annually. I can see how it's maybe a little confusing. It's the shadow flicker.
Okay, Terry, number 2.
Number 2, if you did the wind studies, you'd be able to determine the height of the structure needed to produce what it is asking for. In other words, I can produce the same amount of energy at 200 feet as I can at 250 feet. Or I have to go another certain level above that to reach a certain amount of wind to produce what you're looking for. So that should be how you determine the height of the structure based on how much wind is produced at a particular level in the atmosphere. That should be dictated based on what you want to get energy out of it. The third one was sensitive water. My pond does not hold water, but eventually it will hold water, and I can get an insurance, decreasing in my insurance on property because I have a water source to put out the fire at my house. If they're able to do whatever they want, I don't have that power, the water source, my insurance would go up too. So you want sensitive water, it should be pretty much covered any.
I follow what you're saying. If anybody has a private pond or something and it's influenced by the thing, it
Oh,
can
I
impact
see.
their homeowner's insurance.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Okay, anything else from the floor? Gary, you've had one already. Are you going to be relatively quick? We still have much work
Has
to
there
do.
been any consideration how a fire would be fought at the top of one of these towers? Should the turbine motor set up, whatever it is, catch fire, overheat, catch
It
fire?
is in there, yeah.
It's one of the first things we talked about.
It's not to be deemed a local, but yes, that's been addressed. Maybe we need to do more. Anything else from the floor?
What, are they gonna hire anybody to monitor these things locally?
Yes.
How many jobs will it create?
I've heard different numbers. I'm gonna say 6 to 10. We've heard different numbers from the company. So I don't wanna say specifically, but someplace between 6 and 10. Anything else?
Is this just open to any topic? Or are you just talking about the wind?
No, you can.
Okay. Is there any regulations on fishing competitions at the lake? As long as they're a local resident?
I don't know.
I didn't know if there was. I just asked.
I have no idea about fishing competitions. We don't have any local, you'd have to, whatever's under DEC.
Does the
And-
lake association,
What?
would the lake association?
And there is a lake association, I would contact there. And then access is through the New York State, there's a fishing access site off at 35.
Bassmasters.
Thank you.
Bassmasters.
I don't know what he's asking that, but earlier this year, there was some kind of ice fishing competition that went on at Guilford Lake, and the people showed up before 6 a.m. and made a lot of noise, parking and dragging all their equipment up Beach Road, and that's how they accessed the lake, not on 35.
And they shouldn't be on Beach Road for
And
that.
they were. There was quite a group, and they were very noisy, and it was before 6.
Well, it's a public access. So
There's hours posted.
they have one every year on the ice, and then they have one in the summer.
Oh,
Gas
yeah.
station, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know.
Anything else from the floor? Okay, I'll say thank you for coming.